And then our whole summer program is going to be virtual. We don't allow parents in, we don't allow adults in, just staff and kids. So we've been talking about like maybe you could get on and make this some read programs and tailor that to move into and doing that and being able to take them to the panel.
And be able to sleep?
Oh yeah, I'll sleep like a baby.
Oh my goodness. You're not giving that baby that, are you?
Huh?
You're not giving that baby, are you?
No.
Hi, Miss Shelley. Oh, we're allowed to eat it now?
We're not making
Well, we turn pizza down. Because there's pizza in it.
We have majority of our kids right now. Yeah, where'd she go? Still there, Charlie? John, the walkway to the food bank, is that city property or is the food bank property? The food bank property. Yeah.
Later. John, how are you? Feeling better? Huh? Yeah.
Hello.
District 1, Councilman Rios.
Present.
District 2, Councilman Pastor.
Present.
District 3, Councilman Latham. District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
District 5, Councilwoman Giles.
Here.
District 6, Councilman Shipley.
Fernando.
Fernando, can you hear us?
It's in Frisco. How can
Okay, now I can. Okay, so
That is loud.
can you guys hear me?
Can you turn your volume up or your microphone up? You do.
You can't hear me?
Barely.
Just barely.
Okay. Let's bow our heads in prayer.
Yeah, hold on. We're still doing roll call, Fernando.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Go ahead, Shelley.
District 6, Councilman Shipley.
Here.
Mayor Gameros.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. And Councilman Shipley is going to lead us in the invocation. Go ahead, Fernando.
Dear Lord, thank you that we can gather here today to do your duty. Please be with everybody that's feeling down, and especially in these trying times, that's struggling. Help them to understand that anybody that's in their life is more important to them is a blessing, and anybody that loves them is a blessing. Please help us to see everything that we have and recognize that and be thankful for that. And for those who are struggling, please help us to reach out to them, to comfort them in this time of need. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mike, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And thank you, staff and council, for being here tonight. If you feel comfortable, you can remove your mask if you're 6 foot distance and remain, in those distance areas. You can take your mask. You should be allowed to take it off unless you're not comfortable doing that. So we'll start with presentations. And the first one we have is GovInvest will present the PSPRS pension funding analysis and preliminary analysis of the economic impact of COVID-19 to police and fire plans. And we have Matt Stoff and Tina Aubro.
Matt and Tina, Max and Tina, you're there?
Yep. Hey, good afternoon, Paul. Or good evening, Paul.
Okay, and we got to do some sound adjustments because we
no.
can't hear it. But Mr. Mayor, members of council, GovInvest is a software that does analysis of our pension liability, and we always felt we were doing the right thing with what we've done past 4 years for our PSPRS pension. But they have a graph and a program, modeling program, that shows the results of the actions taken by this council and previous councils. And so we're excited to hear from them. So let's see if we got a sound check. Max, can you?
Hey, Paul, can you hear us now?
No. We just barely hear you.
The volume's all the way up on our end.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tina, can you hear me well on your end?
Max, I can hear you. Can anyone hear me?
There was a little thing that said microphone on here that was way turned down. I don't know if that matters.
Is there?
Were you all able to hear?
Tina, hang on a second. Let's see. There's nothing we can do?
And those TVs behind council get turned up?
No.
Oh, that could work.
Yes, maybe.
So it's a common problem because Fernando had problems too.
Is Danny, not the volume on the TV sets?
Oh.
And
maybe if there's a dial number, we could call in there.
Yeah, their microphones are already up, all the way up. So, Max and Tina, would you be okay if we rescheduled because we're having some technical difficulties here? And I think that it's not crucial that we do go this meeting. I hate to have you lined up and ready to go, but would you be okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. If there's a dial-in number, maybe we can just go on a conference line and share a screen. That's another alternative.
I heard.
Oh no, they can't.
Yeah, do you want to have them? All right, we're going to read you a phone number that you can try calling in.
Can I email the phone number to him?
Yeah, we're going to email you a phone number that you can try to call in real quick here. So, and we'll get that taken care of. Okay.
And they're supposed to give us a brief summary on where we're at as far as our funding,
right,
and where we're at in the effects of COVID-19.
Exactly. And the presentation is in your packet.
I wonder, because Fernando, try your volume again. See what you sound like. Yeah, see, you're still low volume too, Fernando.
Yeah, and I think it's on your side because there's nothing I can do.
Can you hear us okay, Fernando? See, it's
That's the phone number for this phone.
All right, and Max, we're trying to send you the phone number to call in on.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I know. It was perfect last week.
A lot of people on Zoom.
Yeah.
Being hacked.
So Shelley, you're sending it by email? No, you're saying to Max, aren't you? Yeah, and Councilman Shipley. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're not going to be able to hear him.
Nice music. All right, Max, did you get that yet?
Yes, just got it.
Okay, good. So try calling in.
Okay, 1 second.
Fernando, do you want to try calling into the conference line too? We should have gotten an email from Shelley that might be better.
Can you not hear me?
No. Just barely. So Max, is that you?
1 second. Not yet.
Okay. Something happened.
Did you say Shelley sent me an email with the phone number?
Right.
Now?
Yes. Yeah, she just sent it right now, Fernando.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Hello?
Hey, Max.
Hey, it's Max from GovInvest. Can you hear me a little better now?
Yeah, we can hear you a lot better. Very, very good.
All right.
Okay.
Perfect.
This is Tina. Can you hear me?
Tina, yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so now you got 11 minutes. So, but no. Again, thank you. Sorry we're on a tight schedule. You know, we got a curfew here in Arizona, and but if you can, like say, share with council some of the good news about the achievements, our investments. We're not so worried, like I said, about the impact of the downturn in the economy, because I think that's minimal. But go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. So I just shared my screen. Can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So as Paul mentioned, we'll dive right into the meat and potatoes of the deck. After speaking with him and Jeannie, we're assessing the impact of the current additional contribution policy, so making additional payments from a revenue measure to pay down both police and fire liabilities. So Tina and myself ran a series of scenarios showing what the city's unfunded liability would look like were they not to continue with this additional contribution policy, both on a baseline projection and were there to be a downturn in the economy. And then we compared that to were the city to continue with the additional contribution policy, even assuming a 0% investment return this fiscal year from PSPRS, and what that impact would look like. And then finally, we looked at what would happen if you continued the additional contribution policy, in this case, roughly an additional $300,000 per year for the police, and about $200,000 per year as an additional payment to PSPRS for fire, and just took a 1-year hiatus this fiscal year, and what that impact would look like. So that's kind of framing out the 4 scenarios we'll show you, and then you can kind of see, one, what it'll look like for your unfunded liability, and then 2, what it would look like for your costs. So I know the charts are a little bit small. Just to confirm, are you all able to kind of see these 4 lines?
Yes.
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 All right. So Tina, do you mind walking them through the 4 different scenarios and kind of the impact of each one?
Sure. I have 2 sets of headphones in, so a little bit of echo there.
Oh, no.
Okay, so the first, the green one is of course no additional discretionary contributions. The red would be 300 additional. Max, what is the yellow? The yellow is 300, yeah. But you skip for 1 year, and then the blue is if you keep your plan on track. And you can see that just by skipping 1 year, if council chooses, it really doesn't take you that far off track of what you're currently planning to achieve. And you'll see in the later years, in 2030, 2032, you actually converge back to the original plan with the 300 extra in additional contribution.
Yeah, and the big takeaway we found from this analysis is even if there is a downturn in the economy, then all of these assume that there is. You'll be able to see that sticking to this plan allows you to pay down your unfunded liability, in this case for the police, several years sooner than were you to not make these additional contributions. And even skipping a single year won't throw off the progress you've made by adopting this policy too much. It'll just lead to marginal changes in your unfunded liability. Likewise, the fire would have a similar trajectory in terms of were you to continue with the policy of making additional contributions, even pausing for a year, you'd pay down your liability a lot quicker. In this case, it looks like about 2 to 3 years quicker. So that's kind of the impact on the liability. And of course, a common question we get when we do these presentations is thinking about, well, what are the costs associated with paying down these liabilities? So we conducted that analysis as well. So now we're back on the police plan. And what we're looking at here is your projected required contribution rates to PSPRS. So we have 4 scenarios here. Like the previous charts, the green and the blue are the default scenarios, assuming that you're not making additional contributions. And the green shows how your rates would increase for a missed investment return. And as you can see, by not making the additional contributions in the short term, your annual payments will be lower. However, they'll be outweighed by higher payments down the road because you're not paying a little bit more to generate savings on interest. Whereas were you to continue the policy of making these additional payments, even skipping a year in fiscal year 2021, you'd still be able to drastically reduce your contribution rates over the course of the amortization period. Tina, are there any kind of key points you picked up on? Anything else you'd want to share?
There really is. In looking at the police, my job, I'm an actuary, and I was responsible for building the calculations that model this. And our client list consists of 25 plans, much like yours. They're all PSPRS. You probably know that PSPRS changed their transfer liability and how you, the city, pays for a transferred employee. Globe Police is the most unique demographic in that respect, in that the majority, so many of your police are transferred. And as a result of PSPRS's new way of calculating the liability, it used to be that the liability came over with assets to match. Now, the assets no longer come over. You start fresh with the new transfer. However, in the actuarial calculation method, you now have to pay for the pay increase that your transfer employee is receiving from their prior employer, in addition to what you're seeing now. So what you saw in your actuarial valuation that came from Foster & Foster a while ago is an increase in normal costs for your police plan. You should be aware that increase will carry with you for several years. So it wasn't an anomaly for this year. So Max, I don't know. So we should probably be aware of that.
And Tina, one thing, yeah, definitely. And one thing that might help these folks out is even if there is this increase in how Foster & Foster is thinking about costing out the police force, how would that impact their additional contribution policy?
As far as additional contribution, that does not change anything on this graph. It changes the normal cost rate to which you have to pay anyway. So your normal cost is going to increase about $100,000 for here on out. What that could do from a budgetary standpoint is you now need to come up with that extra $100,000 because of PSPRS's new transfer policy. So that will, and I can map that out a little bit better for next time. So that's something that perhaps in police there's an additional $300,000. We need to keep in the back of our mind that I don't remember what is the normal cost for this year. We need to add $100,000 to it for the upcoming years due to this new, and it's a PSPRS change, so everybody is affected. It's just that Globe's demographics happen to have a lot of transfers, so it has hit you the hardest. But we need to keep that in mind.
And Max and Tina, on this chart on the police, I think what impressed us the most is, well, you can see the green and the blue is kind of default if we did nothing. The red is that additional $300,000 annually. That's the 0.3%, the police portion of the 0.3% sales tax that we put in there. And so it raises the payments, but pretty much it's on a downward trajectory. So every year that payment will go down just a little bit more, and kind of glides into the end. If we had not done that if you look at the blue and the green, every year it would climb to almost $1 million. And then we have one lump payoff, and that's the budget breaker that you saved us from. That upward trend would just kill us, and we would be strangled by that. But now every year it's going to get a little bit better. And so that's what we're so. The yellow one shows a one-time non-payment, and before we got our revenue, we looked at that and had them model what if we skipped 1 year, and it didn't hurt too much, but I don't think that we're going to need to even recommend that right now. I think we're in good enough shape that we don't need to. But if we wanted to, I think we could get away with it and not hurt so much. But I think at this point, we're going to recommend that we not skip that payment this year, even though we got some budget issues. I think we'll be okay.
So if we make the payment, we continue to make
Your mic.
if we continue to make that payment for this year, does the yellow line move at all any? Or
It would be the red line.
oh, the red line?
The red line would continue as the continue on the payment. And so we would gain some advantage, especially in the meat of it, in the middle.
Okay.
Tina, I have a quick question. On the transfers that you're talking about, what's the difference, or is it a set amount between a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 transfer of public safety personnel?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, is there a difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2 as far as transferring an individual from another agency, or is there just a set amount that you're talking about, that 100,000?
My understanding, because I finally got some information from PSPRS, they had sent to Janine, is that it's on an individual basis. So every year that number will change, and if that transfer should terminate or retire or become disabled, then that normal cost would go away for that person.
Okay.
But the new funding policy on transfers moves part of that liability to your future funding.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we were very afraid. We're happy they did this change, because it used to be you could have somebody work, 29 years in an agency, and then you hire him here for the last year of his stay, and you take on that whole 30-year burden, and that's now we just take on that 1 year. So that's been a lifesaver for us.
Freddie, you had a question?
Yeah, this is Councilman Rios. Back to the 1 year hiatus, would it have a greater or less impact, say, if the hiatus was 10 years from now or 5 years from now, as opposed to this year? Would we still see the same graphic type movement?
That could be a good question for you.
Yes, this is Tina. If you were to take the hiatus later, you would still the funding, the cost would still converge closely together. It wouldn't drastically change your result.
And the end game would still, according to the model in your graph, would still be relatively the same.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
Max, you go ahead and go forward.
Sure. Okay. So these are if you're looking at it from now looking at the fire, it follows a similar pattern, just to kind of bookend the hiatus versus non-hiatus strategy. As you can see, even if you were to skip this year's payment, in the long term, you'd be looking at lower contribution rates than were you to stick with the default. And we think, looking at that, it makes a lot of sense to continue with the policy if you have the funds available, because it is advantageous. Again, just based off of this model. So for the remainder of the deck, we spoke with Paul and other folks on staff kind of about additional resources and next steps where we could help out. To kind of highlight where we kind of concluded is we just want to make sure that we're positioning ourselves as a resource. So when you're starting to assess these kind of policies, you can come to us, make sure that your scenarios are really validated. You have contacts with folks like Tina and other senior actuaries. So you're making data-driven decisions as opposed to having to surmise what's going down 15, 20, 30 years down the road. So are there any kind of other key points from earlier in the presentation about COVID-related market volatility or general strategies that we're seeing from other agencies that we work on that you'd like me to touch on?
No, I think this is the most important one, given the the limited time. I think that we know that the limited impact that COVID is going to have because it is stretched out. But I think this is the most important thing, and we're so happy to have you guys as our partners showing us this. We always felt we were doing the right thing, but we were kind of flying blind, and you validated, I think, more than we even expected. Well, I think you highlighted what we did not know, this cliff at the end of the 30 years that we would have had if not for the adding the 0.3% tax. And you've shown that we have that. The other thing is, who knows what's going to happen next year with all the different factors. The actuaries look at this, and if there is a hiccup, if there is something, we'll know ahead of time rather than when it hits us between the eyes later. And so we have a vision into the future of this rather than just, keeping our fingers crossed. So Max and Tina, thank you so much for joining us.
All right.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to meet you all, and stay safe, and we look forward to speaking with everyone soon.
And if you ever make it to Arizona, come up here. We'll get you some really good Mexican food. Okay.
All right.
I am actually going to take you up on that. My father is down there for 3 months out of the year, and I will come to Globe.
Come up here, and we will treat you right. So, Tina, thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Good night. Item B is an update by staff on federal relief funds to be distributed to Arizona cities and towns through Arizona Cares and Arizona Express Pay program. Paul.
So, Mr. Mayor, myself, Jeannie, and I think Gary watched the Zoom call on this Arizona Cares money. As you know, we have about 834,000 that's been dedicated to us. Between the last time we talked about it and this, they indicated that you don't have to isolate for the Arizona Cares money. You don't have to isolate whether it was used to fight COVID. They've interpreted this that any public safety activity is helping in fighting COVID. And so it's going to be much looser in submitting for that. I believe that we will be able to recapture most, if not all of that money, over the next 9 months. And so we don't know exactly the timing and how it'll come in, but we'll be planning for it. But we're going to start the application process. But we should be able to nail down that money based on what we saw. I don't want to make a hard promise and commitment until we do a little research on some finer points on that. But it looks very good. There's also the FEMA money from the DEMA. Gary, that is you have to track, and so overtime, PP&E, the cleaning of the playgrounds. We can also apply for direct reimbursement for those hard costs, and that would be over and above the 800,000. So we're looking pretty strong that we can get our the cost of us having a police force and a fire department will be reimbursed, and so then that will clear budget money that we would have spent for salaries, and it's salary only, but that would clear budget money for salaries that we can spend on something else. And so it's very good news.
Early.
So is the FEMA money salary only, or is the Arizona Cares?
The Arizona Cares is salary only, but it's all you have to do is show that you're using your regular staff. You're not creating positions. You're not bringing in new positions. We have enough existing positions in the past year that we can show. So some we would apply for hard costs from May 1st forward, and in going all the way up to December 30th, we can just show that last year we were staffed at a certain rate and that we have maintained that staff and submit that. So it makes it fairly simple. They're very motivated to distribute this money in full, and they've said that.
So is FEMA?
FEMA is very specific with reimbursement of direct costs. But Arizona Cares is the broader. So, and we're going to go after both. I think the FEMA is probably more competitive. Yeah.
Your data's going to be pretty strong.
Yeah. Mayor? Ready?
Thank you. So, how is the FEMA money or funds allocated? Is there by population? Is it?
No, it is per need. Gary, you grab a mic and. Where's the mic?
The other mic.
Many mics. Talk about the FEMA because you know more about the FEMA.
So the FEMA costs, anytime there's any kind of a natural disaster, anything like that, there are FEMA funds that are made available to reimburse the costs of those responses. It's the same thing applies to COVID, but it does, there are entities that have found that if you don't have a large amount, the amount of effort you have to put into recovering that money is more significant than what the reimbursement you will get on it. So it would be evaluating how much we've actually put into in hard costs in terms of the overtime costs, in terms of PPE costs, in terms of hours, anything above and beyond what Arizona Cares will reimburse, we could potentially submit for reimbursement through FEMA. It would just be evaluating what that amount is going to be and supplying a lot of data to them, whereas Arizona Cares is a very broad data set that's going to allow you to recoup that 800,000 and change that they allotted for us.
Chief, that 840,000, is that given the full amount given to the city, or is it something we apply for and get it in portions? Do we get all of it together and then?
So they gave us different options to look at. There is the option of submitting for what we've used to date, and then over the course of the remainder of the year, recouping a portion of that. There's also the option to where we can look at it. We can supply them what we've used to date, but we can also go back to our costs from last year, potentially from March to December, which is the period that's open. And as long as we can articulate that we will spend up to our allotted amount in salaries and wages for individuals, police, fire, public health, as long as we can articulate that and show them that we're going to spend that amount, it could potentially be paid in one lump sum. They gave several different options. We just, the biggest thing is we just have to show that in hard costs as far as paying people to do their jobs related to COVID and police and fire, they've made the statement that any police and fire activity right now is COVID related. The public health side is a little bit different. We'd have to articulate a little bit better, but as long as we show that, we recoup our full allotment.
Would public safety include public works also, though?
More potentially along the lines of public health, but I think you could articulate it. I honestly don't think we're going to have to. I think if you took police and fire salary for that time period, for the same time period last year, along with what we spent right now, I think you would clearly show that we've exceeded that 800,000 and change that's available, and would show a clear case for recouping our entire amount.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we were on this call at 1:00 today, and so just briefly had started looking at it, and we haven't really had a chance to strategize. I believe we go after both. I think we've been documenting overtime hours. We're documenting sick leave that we have to cover above and beyond. We're documenting PPE, and what was the other one that is reimbursable? The playground stuff, things like that. So I think anything we can submit into that's kind of blown our budget this year, we're going to submit that from FEMA. If that doesn't come through, if it comes through limited, then I think we pull from the Arizona Cares money and backfill the budget, the true costs that we had this year. And so we will, if we can't cover the true costs this year through FEMA, I think we'll cover it through the Arizona Cares, and then we'll figure out going forward what we do with the rest of that money, because I don't think the true costs right now the direct costs that we can document equal to 800,000. It's a good problem to have.
I just have one more question too then. When you're talking about salaries, and we have, I know in all departments, police, fire, public works, they were probably not allowed in some cases to take their vacations because of limited staff. Is there a component in there where we could say at the end of our fiscal year and they exceed the amount of, 240 vacation hours, that we can buy their vacation hours and bring them down and utilize that money for that, so they won't be taking vacation, we'll be paying them off?
I don't think anybody in the past 2 years has lost vacation. We always manage that one way or the other. So even without this money, we try to make sure that they get their vacation extended if they need to. I don't think anybody's lost vacation because they didn't spend it in time. But it would be unfair to say, oh, you can't take a vacation, and now you're stuck and you're going to lose that. So we've been able to manage that. But that would be a way to use that money, is to buy it out if we need to. And that would be, I think, a legitimate expense, because the lack of the ability to take a vacation is because of the COVID.
And even if we gave them a certain amount that we could buy back, because if they take a vacation, we're going to pay double on that, because we're going to have to put somebody back on at time and a half or to work that shift. So if we could even bring below the 240 whatever hours they have and buy some of those hours back with this CARES Act money. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Item C, update by staff on Governor Ducey's curfew declaration.
And Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask Dale, just to real quick, instead of me trying to explain what you told me about this. Do you want to give 90 seconds on Ducey's, the curfew, and how you see that as police chief of the City of Globe?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. When this first came out, I conferred with our legal advisors for the police department, and we were on kind of a chain email with the other cities and stuff. This is really a tool that's put out there to assist law enforcement with civil unrest. It's not really designed to hamper businesses and things. It's kind of try to send warning to the general public and be aware, and then give some more tools. So how we're handling it is we're addressing it on a case-by-case basis when it comes up. So if we had a group of individuals that were outside the curfew hours causing issues down at the park or something like that, we would go and communicate with them and try to handle it that way and through community policing and fix it. But we haven't had any issues whatsoever in the Globe area. So in fact, for quite some time, everybody up here has been phenomenal about just kind of taking care of their own. Any questions or concerns about it?
Mike,
does it matter how large the group is? Because like right now, it's 10 can get together. If there's 10 out there, you'd still have to break them up.
Well, if it's outside the curfew hours, the answer to your question is yes, sir. But like you're seeing across the nation, these agencies are giving some leeway. We all believe in the right for people to protest, and we want to make sure that we don't infringe on those rights. But at some point in time, this just gives us some tools to help deal with it if it gets unruly and out of hand. So it's not a cut and dry for us here. We're not dealing with it at that level, but it's just a tool for us to utilize. So far, it hasn't really been an issue within the community whatsoever, and we're hoping it stays that way.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Mayor, I think we had this conversation about, doing just Maricopa and Pima County and why the whole state. I think when I talked to Dale about that, it's like if these groups would know that they couldn't come out possibly in Maricopa County, so they come into the neighboring counties in the same way when they locked down Maricopa County, everybody came up here to go shopping or to gather or whatever. And so I think Governor Ducey had that fresh in his mind when he did that. But we did see, and I think you talked to the Payson police chief, that they had a handful of people in Payson that came up.
Yeah, there was a handful of people that went to the Payson area, and actually some of the local citizens had a conversation with them that kind of deterred them from proceeding with anything up there. Here, we've had people on social media trying to encourage a gathering and stuff, and with overwhelming input from the community, it was kind of looked upon as a bad thing. We're actually rising right now with COVID-19 cases. We're still in the midst of the pandemic. We have fire restrictions up here. There's a lot of other stuff going on, and I just don't think there's the aptitude to have something like that in the area. So that's what we're seeing on social media right now. The Globe community has been, the whole Culver Valley community has been phenomenal throughout all of this. Very patient, very understanding. And it's a very touchy thing between 3 months in COVID and now dealing with the civil unrest. There's a lot of uncertainty in the communities.
Any other questions, comments? Chief, thank you very much. And thanks for expressing that about keeping track of social media, because I did see those posts about trying to organize protests here, and just so the people know out there that law enforcement is viewing those Facebook posts and are aware of them.
Yeah, and the community's been really, just on another note, the community's been really outstanding about notifying officials if they see something out of sorts on social media. And I get texts from a number of different people on a routine basis that are concerned about the welfare and safety of the community. So it's really a positive thing. So we're going to keep doing our best, and if council or citizens have questions or something, they're more than welcome to reach out to us, and we'll do our best to answer.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we have new business. Item A, council will discuss and possibly direct staff on the City of Globe fiscal year 2020-2021 budget priorities after initial review of general funds revenue projections and department level expenditure budgets for mayor and council, administration, fire, police, magistrate, public works, economic development, museum, fleet, library, water, and sewer, and additional budget components, including health care and retirement benefits. And it's going to be Jeannie and Paul.
Correct. And Mr. Mayor, before we get started, I had high hopes of getting this and the CIP in on the same meeting, and a couple of people smacked me around and said, I don't think so. So what the things that we don't have on here now, which is mainly HERF, and so it would be streets, active adult, and then all the CIP, and then the CIP as relates to strategic action plan. Those we will bring forward in a week, or at least in 6 days, on the June 9th meeting. So this is the rollout. This does have some bottom line numbers, but we will have a follow up. And this is, we put this out to council, I think, on Friday afternoon. This is a work in progress. We're already changing some numbers as we get new information and work through all this. We'll try to show that to you. But it's just it's an ongoing process, but no time like the present to start reviewing and get council's feedback. So with that, I will kick it to Jeannie, who should be over my left shoulder.
Thank you. Are we going to put the PowerPoint up, or? Good evening,
You should
Mayor
have a PowerPoint,
and Council.
yes.
There we go. Okay, so this is a rollout of our. Can you hear me?
And can you hear Jeannie okay?
Not really.
It's on. Can you hear me?
Can you?
I do, and it's on.
It's a little better.
Closer?
Closer.
That's pretty close. Is this close enough? Okay.
Doesn't bite.
Okay. All right, so this is the rollout of preliminary budget review. And I need to use my mouse at the same time. And this is for fiscal year 2021. Okay, oops.
And these slides mirror the packet that you got this weekend.
These are the slides that we provided Friday, that we finished up Friday and got to you over the weekend. And so what these are showing you, my main point that I want to make on this slide is the budget model that we're using. So the green column, the proposed budget, that will be the column that we will eventually end up asking council to approve as the final budget. That will be the high number, because we need to appropriate the funds so we can spend them when revenues do recover. The pink column, the COVID-19 funded budget, is what we will be operating off of, and all departments will be operating off of for at least through October, and by then the revenues should start coming back. The revenues, even with the pandemic in place right now, they're looking good, but that's because we haven't seen sales taxes yet for the hard hit months. We've got pretty good sales tax that's been coming in through May, but that is April sales tax paid in May and March sales tax paid in May, so it's not really reflecting much May sales tax and no June sales tax. So we built two layers into this budget. The pink one, the funded budget, the lower amount that we will operate off of, and then ultimately hope to get to the green column. I threw some revenue slides in here. Oops.
And Jeannie, did you talk about the percentage?
No, I did not. In the blue column, the percentage cut is the percentage that we have applied to the green column to get the pink column. So everything that's in the recovery budget column, the white one, is what will be available once revenues are where they need to be. You can see by all of the little red marks in the upper corners, that means that I analyzed every single one of these in the estimated fiscal year 20, did projections. I have the comments in those to identify how I came up with those projections. And so that's in every account. We've got well over 600 accounts. And then in the green column, the notes over there was where Paul and I sat down with each department and went line by line through their budgets and identified what those costs are made up of.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, one thing we determined is that we run a pretty tight budget. There are many costs, like if you look on here, like Arizona League, that's the payment we make to the Arizona League as a member. You really can't reduce that, so we have to pay that full amount. Business travel, we took down 80%. This communications was solid. Necessities and condolences, we took down 25%. So we went down and sat with the members and staff of the budget of each department and kind of went through this just to make these adjustments so we could save as much as we could. But this budget is loaded with enough funds to fully function the city, fully staffed.
And Paul's absolutely right. That is what we found when we started doing this process, was every year we run such a tight budget, there's very little wiggle room. The next few slides are revenue projections, and we threw those in so you could see how city sales tax is looking. We've got another slide, 3 or 4 slides down, that will identify to you how we came up with the proposed budget in the green column, and the estimated budget in fiscal year 20. You can see that the sales tax revenue and the estimated budget fiscal year 20, that's the amount that I figure we will end up with by the end of June. And that's based on actual city sales tax collected through May 26th, and then projecting a month. So you can see that we are going to come in higher by June 30th than what we had initially budgeted for in the adopted budget fiscal year 20 column. You can see, looking through these things, that there are some budgets that are running well under what was budgeted. And then we get to if we go to the revenue projection slide, this is the explanation of the city sales tax.
Okay, so I'm going to take this one. This was the most important part of the puzzle. We didn't know what to expect, and I'll tell you, we're still, got our fingers crossed that things are good. The money rolls in on a 45 to 60 day lag, and so this revenue projections are kind of my talking points. What I am talking about is if you go back 2 slides, that city sales tax slide, that line item and the number is that 1030-41300 city sales tax. So we looked at the true numbers we had. In February, we had $416,000 in city sales tax receipts. March jumped up to 579, and that is partially hoarding, but it's on a lag. There's a lot of people buying stuff, but those March numbers pull in a lot of the February too. So I really can't tell you where that split and where the money came. Where that normal everybody buying and we were collecting the taxes, and then everybody being closed down and no one's going to dinner. April we came back down 350,000, and what we found is from the month of March to the month of April, we're about a 40% drop. We were thinking 32%, 33%. We saw a 40% drop, but March was so high, it's like that's kind of an outlier. So what we did, what Jeannie and I came up with, is we took the average from July to February. So from July of 19 to February of 20, we took all of those up and down numbers and we averaged them at 421,000 is a typical month. So then we took what's the drop in April? Well, April dropped from 421 to 350, about a 21. We called it 22% drop. Is a typical drop from our average, not from the high, but from the average. And so we are estimating going forward that 21% will probably happen in the first 3 to 6 months in the 2021 budget. So we're thinking August, September, October, and possibly November, December, January. So those 6 months, we think the first 3 months probably going to be at 20% reduced. It's probably going to scale up a little bit, but we're going to call it 20% there, and then hopefully it'll ramp up by January, Christmas, and everything like that. We should have our revenues back. We did this for lack of any. It seems reasonable, and no one's doing much different. Everybody's given about a 3 to 6 month recovery time. I think that would be a safe bet, and so that's how we're managing the projections on city sales tax. So what we had, and so. Just reading from the bottom, which you can see on the lines on the city sales tax spreadsheet, we're seeing $444,000, which is 11 months of actual plus 1 month of estimated 350. Okay, so that's what we come out with, and we're coming out about 15,000 more than we had estimated. So. At that point, we're thinking on sales tax, not going to have that much of a hit. Proposed sales tax, if we had done the normal projection that we do every year for sales tax, we take the first 8 months, average that, and then add in the last 4 months on the average of the first 8 months. That's what we did again, with that average being 421, and that would project us, if this hadn't happened, we would be projecting $5,059,000 in sales tax collection. But we know that we think we're going on the foundation that the first 6 months are going to be 20% reduced. And so what that means is we plugged in 11%, 22% kind of reduction. If you take 22% down from half the year, would equal to across the year 11%. And so that's how we came up with the 4,503. I'm sorry, 4,503,000 number that is our budgeted COVID.
Can we see that slide again? We don't have it in our packet, that slide.
You don't have which one?
The
slide that you showed.
No, they don't. Right, they don't have. Can you put that back to the revenue projections? Because that one we did after the packet.
They don't have this slide? It's up there now?
They don't have this
They have
one.
this one.
The one with a 21% drop on it.
Yeah, this one. Can you put that up on the screen?
Oh. That one?
Yes.
Yeah, that one we worked out this week.
Can we get a copy of that in our mail
Yeah.
boxes?
No, we can definitely get you one. So take a look at that. And this is basically I was trying to nail down how I would explain this. So this is basically my description of how to explain that sales tax number. So again, February was good, March was tremendous, April dropped, but we don't know. May seems to be doing fairly good. It's coming in a little bit at least as strong as April. We haven't delved into the actual tax rolls to see what individual segments are doing, but we feel pretty confident that I would say it's not going to be as bad as we thought. And then on top of that, we do have the COVID, the Arizona CARES money too. What I would like to do though is I would recommend that we stick with the plan, because just when you think you're out of the woods, a tree falls on your head. So I think that we have this plan where we're gonna budget to the lower amount. We're gonna have and hold the higher amount, and then we can track that. And when the revenues are outperforming the COVID amount, then we can start reeling that back in. There's still gonna be a lot of things, travel and training and things are not going to happen. So there's expenses we won't have. What the best part of the news is I thought that we would have to come out of fund balance to balance this budget, even on the COVID budget. I thought the revenues would be less than our stripped down budget. Our revenues are better than our stripped down budget, and so it will be balanced. Now, which slide am I on? That would be the next one. But any questions on this slide after you're looking at it?
So, Paul, what you're saying on the average, if we spread it out throughout the year, we're looking at 11%.
Yeah, 11% over the year, which would equal to 22% in the first half and 0 in the second half. I think it'll recover. But, I'm not an economist. And there's election year. Mr. Mayor had a question.
Mike?
So, Paul, by adopting the proposed budget, which is in the green column, even though it's higher, we're not restricted from moving the money around in the COVID budget?
Right. What we have, you can move money within a budget department. So if you have, more in piping and you need some more in equipment repair or something like that, if you have a surplus in one, you can move it within the department. If you're moving into another department, then you need council permission to move that. Now but what we have is we have a bucket with a line on it. So we're going to pass a full bucket, but we're only going to fill it less 20%. And so we'll be able to dip out of that, and we can spend pretty comfortably going forward. By the time we get to where we're starting to get low in the bucket should fill as we get to the second half. So we're going to track and see how this goes. This is kind of a new process for us. I think we're going to be watching. We sat down the way Jeannie did the current where we're at budget. She was able to go in there and say, okay, we've spent this much and we have this much pending. And that's this pending thing. Anytime you look at the budget, there's a month to 2 month of up in the air. So Jeannie has a way of looking at the accounts payable, what's in the queue, and then see where we're at before they go spending too much. A lot of the operational spending is on a natural progression anyway. Salaries, payments to vendors, payments to contracts. We don't have a lot of one-up, so we should be able to monitor this and ratchet it up if we need to as we go. And but we won't do it unless we see that the revenues are performing. And if the revenues slip under what we'll pull it back.
So where is the $843,000 from Arizona Cares? Where is that going to be put into the budget line items?
That is a $64 question. We had actually stuck it in there in the bottom and then realized it kind of blew out. So when I sent the email out saying that this should be a slam dunk, we get it in there, we were going to use it as revenue. Then we were hearing you had to justify it. You had to have a hard cost. And so I'm like, there's no way we're going to have hard costs in there. So then we started pulling it out and we started doing our budgeting without that in there. Then now hearing this, that it's more than likely that we'll have that full amount. We're going to have to put it back in there. I'm not sure exactly how we'll put it back in there. I think we'll put it in there. I'm not sure yet.
There is a line item.
Because I don't know for sure.
There is a line item, and I believe it was in what we gave you. On the revenue budget, it's the last item, and it's COVID-19 reserve account. That's where we originally had the $800,000 plugged in and then took it out because we will need to have it back in there because we need to have it in. We have to appropriate it to spend it.
Which page you've got it in there, right?
Okay, so really, I guess maybe my further question is, so I know that the police chief wants new or more cars, and we need them. And I know the fire department wants whatever, and BESH needs whatever they need. How's that all going to happen?
We will bring a proposal forward to council on the 9th.
On the $843,000? Okay.
Yeah. Because it's very exciting.
Hey, you guys, get your dibs in.
Okay, now don't help them.
Well, that's what we're here for. Get your dibs in. We are going to help.
I will work with them. Okay.
So no matter what happens, that money is going to improve our budget.
Oh, it's going to,
anyway.
yes. It frees up. It's dedicated for salaries. It frees up, and that is general fund money that is relaxed. And I think we need to look at how best to spend that. So Jeannie, you want to go to the fund balance estimates? Okay, this is another one I don't have didn't get in your original packet. We'd stuck this in there. Hopefully everybody can see this, but I'm gonna walk through this. The general, we have two bottom lines for general fund revenue. General fund revenue is the most touchy of our sources. This comes from all of our sales tax, our property tax, state share, things like that. All right. And remember, I talked about how much are we going to have to backfill from the fund balance in contingency, our piggy bank, our one-time money. Operational money, O&M, is things that happen every year, and they should come from a spending source that is refilled every year. Fund balance is a one-time piggy bank that goes up and down based on what we do, but it's not just when you spend it, it's not coming back unless you specifically put that back in there. So we want to preserve fund balance, but we want to spend operational money wisely. Right now, in our budget, when you look at that, the 2021 general fund revenue budgeted for COVID-19, we're at $9.8 million, and general fund expenses after we strip this down for COVID, we're at $8.9 million. So what that means is that we have, even with in the COVID budget, we get about $930,000 that we have not allocated to any cost yet. Okay, so that's a surplus, and on top of that, so that's good news.
Well, so $930,758 has not been allocated. Where's it going?
I don't know yet. What we're going to try for right now, I'd like to put it in the contingency until we find that we have some needs for it.
Along with the 843?
Because I don't. So here's my fear.
You have a lot of needs.
If we take that and we divvy it up, peanut butter around all the departments, and then what happens if come October something goes horribly wrong? We don't have that anymore. It's already been. We'll have to backtrack. This is like why we're not opening up the city yet. I don't think it's over until it's over. I'm happy that we have this surplus. I think when you see the next budget, we're going to lose about $100,000 to some things that I think we need to put in there. But I don't intend to go in and start, taking that and allocating that out at this point. The money will be there, and we will have it, and we will be able to spend it at some point. Even if it only goes back into the fund balance, it replenishes our fund balance, and we have that for whatever may come up. Now, if you looked at even at the full budget we did, and if we had, if you look at this slide, general fund expenses, 10.3 million, general fund revenue, 10.8 million. The bottom line is our revenues are doing better. We're holding our budget constant. The revenues are outperforming. I'm cautiously optimistic. The other question we don't know is state shared. State shared HERF, income tax. That's a big question mark. We lost the whole National League Baseball season. We lost spring training. We lost concerts. I don't know. I mean, the stuff that they lost nationally, statewide, we're going to take a hit on that. We're projecting 15%, thinking it's going to be 30% for that bulk. And so I don't know where that's going to shake out. What I do plan on doing, though, is when we get to January, we come back, we see if we're recovered, we see where we're at, and then we try to decide, okay, we were tight, we were good, we were well behaved, we didn't eat the ice cream, we stuck to our diet. Come January, I think we need to look at it and see if there's legitimately some safety in making some changes and adding some. I will tell you that we're gonna make this as flexible as possible and see if there are things that we can address with a more address some specific needs, some specific cool things in January, and that would be the time to take advantage. If this money stays and doesn't get lost because of state shared revenue, I don't want to get everybody too excited right now. This is what it looks like, but I'd like to just see some history on it. I'd like to let this play out. We're in new territory, and so to allocate it now just makes me very nervous. I'm very happy that we're sitting on a $930,000 surplus. It'll probably go to about $800,000 or $750,000 by the time we get through with this process.
It will change.
What's that, Jeannie?
It will change. This is a very preliminary budget. There's still a lot that has to happen with this.
So what between now and when we pass this, we're going to be asking questions, comparing this to see if other cities are getting this. The one thing I know is we've been trying to build tourism, and we've been working on that, but it's still new to us. Cities that had a lot of tourism saw a lot of drop. We didn't have that much tourism, so I don't think we had that much drop. But there's still a lot of things going on, and so until I can understand it better, and still we can understand it better and explain it and get a handle on the dynamics, I'd rather play it safe. That's my thought. And ready?
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's great to have a surplus at this time. Things are still in flux. We're still in the pandemic. And all this, not just here in Globe, but the entire, state and the country is still driven by the pandemic. And so, it's good to know that we have a surplus. And I believe that things are going to change. I hope it doesn't happen, but we'll see what the fall brings, if there's another surge or not. So, it's comforting to know that we have a surplus to back that. And if it doesn't roll out in a worst case, then yeah, I'm with Councilman Giles. Let's get to our department heads and see what we can do for them.
And this surplus is a paper surplus because we're doing our projections as every month we get more revenue in, we can see that it's solid in there. And that's why I think when this thing hits, we will definitely have an idea by January, if not that at that time, as to when we can safely spend that or allocate it or do something with it. And it's gonna be nice to have a lump sum. So we have the surplus, we have this CARES money. If everything that we're showing you pans out the way that we think it will, we're going to be looking good. If there's a hook, if there's a twist, if there's something we missed, if there's another black swan event, then we're sitting in a comfortable place that we could recover from that because we haven't been overzealous in this time. It's a good time to be conservative, at least for the next 6 months, I think.
I want to apologize. I said councilman. I meant to say Councilwoman Giles. Sorry.
Paul, even with the state, the budget doing very well in the past year, what was the reason we lost, I think, $50,000 in state share revenues this last fiscal year?
Because our population has stayed flat, but everybody else's has grown. And so if there's a pie of money, and the pie of money is getting better, but every person is another slice of that money. And so if another city, their slices go up 10%, they're getting more numbers of slices. We have a bigger pie, but we're only getting the 7,350 slices that we have in our population. The only thing that can change that is our census, and we have more time to get that count up there. But when everybody else when the pie is growing and the population percentage, when another city has another 100,000 people, that just waters down the slices of our pie. Each person is left worth just that much less, and so that's why while even the growth of the revenues is the population and then the total distribution.
I just have one more comment. So, I guess to clarify, I'm certainly not advocating that we spend this money prematurely. I personally have many little stashes because I think you always have to be prepared for plan A, B, C, and maybe even D. But I think all the department heads need to be thinking, we have so pared down our budgets. What is it that we really need, want, what have you? How do we do that? And that's my first point. My second point is later in this evening's meeting, we are going to be asked about passing costs on to our employees. And I personally, if we're looking at $1.773,758, which I realize could be $1,500 or $1.5 million or maybe close to $2 million, we don't know. I don't think we should be asking employees to pay more for what we're going to talk about later.
And I just want to talk about the fund balance that we're not going to have to hit out of. And so I put this slide together that you can see, and I'm sorry I don't have a for you, but so normally by policy we take the revenue and we put 15% of that revenue into a contingency fund. We budget that so that if, like the medical building, we could fund that, purchase that medical building. We didn't know anything about it, but we could fund that. So we always have that purchase or that 15% there. Normally, that 15% comes totally from fund balance. Last year we budgeted right up to the amount of revenues and expenditures all matched, and so the fund balance was taken right out of there. This year, to hit that 1.4 fund contingency, we'll only have to pull about $548,000 out of fund balance as a transfer, and that's a good thing. Now, last year, we budgeted a 1.6 contingency, and we ended up pulling about $600,000 out of that. About half of that is some overspending in some of the departments, but another half of that is transfers that we did. And so just because we budget that 1.479 doesn't mean we're going to spend that. And that's why it's a safe place to put it. Using contingency for fund balance for contingency is safe because these are usually one-up costs. It's a one-time fee. You wouldn't budget a position out of contingency, which comes out of fund balance, but you could buy a one-time building out of fund balance. Okay, so we did pretty well. Coming into last year's budget, our fund balance was 4.9. Coming into this year's budget, our fund balance is 4.2, and we'll know when it shakes out when we finally do the audits is how much goes back in there. But we're still sitting on general fund over a $4 million fund balance, so that's also good news.
So there's where I have a question. So we do have $4 million, close to $5 million. How is that growing? How is that invested? That is.
We have Jeannie, didn't you have a line item, how much money we made off of that?
I have an interest account.
Round figures. Doesn't have
yeah, I've looked at so many figures, I can't give you round figures.
I understand.
The interest
can't ask her to
earned.
be general.
Right. I'm sorry, she's an accountant. What was I thinking?
The interest that we have earned so far, and we're only really getting interest through our LGIP accounts right now, and we've earned. I estimate that by the end of June, we'll have earned $56,880 for the current fiscal year, and then I've budgeted $59,650 going forward, simply because I don't know what this pandemic is going to do to our interest rates.
That seems low for almost $5 million. I mean, that just seemed that's 1%. Little better than that. What can we do differently? And maybe that's not a discussion for right now, but I'd like to see that in the future. That's a low amount, $50,000 for $5 million.
Right, and we are moving it into that fund. I can't remember the rates on that, but that probably is something we can. That would be a good secondary conversation, not for tonight. But let's,
yeah, no, that's fine.
But we're, we won't do anything risky with it.
Well,
Mike, go ahead.
It's nice to look at some positive numbers there, but this is a one-time occasion, and we need to be real aware of how we're going to go spend it. I mean, everybody should have an opportunity to present and stand for their case. Okay, but we need to be, realize it. We've got, I've only got another few months. Some of you have another 4 months, 4 years, and I may have another 4 years. And we have to make sure we're forecasting, without just spending it because we've got this one big bubble of money right now.
So I agree. But when I came on this council, we were sitting on double that amount of money. And there's roads that are falling into.
There's needs. There's
yeah.
needs. I mean, it
so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, let's
let's
solve
not be
all
doing
our
that.
needs, but we're not going to be able to solve them all.
I don't think we were sitting on double the money. I think another
8 or 9.
Well, yeah, but that's not just general fund money. That's HERF money, and
10,
we can't spend on.
We have about $10 million in enterprise fund balance.
That's different. So we do have that amount, but it's a different fund that we can't use out of our general fund.
I think the general fund we've kept right around that $4 to $5 million for general fund.
Right around there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since I've been doing it, it has, yeah.
But we always get this. It's like, okay, is that combined or the separated out? And water, sewer is much lower. Water is pretty healthy. General fund fluctuates a lot based on how much we take out of it and then how much we put back, because a lot of the I think other than all but 3 department budgets underspent their budget. They've spent it pretty close, but anything we put, that'll go back in, and CIP items that aren't used will go back in. So it's a moving target, but we like seeing it between the 4 and 5.
Jeannie, quick question on the 4.2 million at the bottom. That we take 15% of that for contingency. Is that the number we use?
The 15% is actually 15% of our estimated expenses.
Oh, expenses.
Okay.
So that 1.4 million represents 15% of the 8,930,000.
Thank you.
So, Jeannie, do you want to go on to department highlights?
Sure. So our next few slides are just touching on some of the department highlights, things we wanted to point out. In the mayor and council budget, we, as Paul said during GovInvest's presentation, we think we're in a position to continue to pay the collected amount on the 0.3% PSPRS tax. We did explore the possibilities of what kind of a problem would that create for us if we went 1 year without paying it. You saw that it didn't make that big of a difference, but we believe the revenue is going to be there to pay it. We've also budgeted the $73,000 again for Miami transportation. The $13,000's in there for the Boys and Girls Club. The Employee Recognition Fund is empty in Mayor and Council. However, there has been money budgeted in the Employee Recognition Fund in the admin. And we're carrying the $25,000 forward again for blight.
Some of that's changed from this document then.
Yeah,
Wasn't blight taken out?
No, I thought
No.
it was in there. I thought we had left blight in.
Okay.
That might, if that's wrong, that's just my memory.
No, I think we left blight in. I
thought we
think
left blight in.
should have been, I think, the last item.
COVID-19.
Okay, yeah, so it's we're not gonna we're not doing blight. Enforcement is pretty tough to do in the middle of a pandemic, so we put the 25 in on the final budget, but on the COVID budget, we probably not going to be doing any type of imposing on that. I mean, we're hard pressed to write citations in the middle of a pandemic, so but we will.
Jeannie, just quick question on the PSPRS. Is a percentage, do we anticipate the percentages for police and fire, the annual, going down this year? Contribution?
I have that in one of the slides.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Okay, so in the administration budget, some of the highlights, we had to budget $11,000 this year for an election, which we only have to do that once every 2 years. And then we budgeted $5,000 for employee recognition, and we budgeted $4,000 for annexation. Paul, did you have something you wanted to say?
We still have a couple of low-hanging fruit annexations that we're looking at. I think the CU Monday went very well, and so might actually put a little bit more money in there and just have that put it not in the COVID side, but on the final side. In case we get any opportunities of people who want to come join us. Like I say, it makes a great annexation when they want to join, and it's nice to be able to just have that happen so quickly and cleanly. And I think you hopefully saw the email that we did our 30 days passed on the CU Monday, and so I think on the 28th it officially became part of the city. But so that's what that money is meant for. And then the library, if you saw in the library budget, it had gone. Library is one of the 3 budgets that had overspent their expenditures. What we had going on in the second part of the library was some question marks in staffing availability, and so we had an opportunity to do a little bit of backup, and we took on a part-time, non-benefited, at least healthcare, temporary person, and that worked out and covered the need we had. So at that point, we had 5 people on staff in library. That was not meant to be a permanent addition, and at the money for that will run out at the end of this budget cycle. But I had made a pledge to council that was not going to do layoffs or reduce anybody in the middle of a pandemic, and so we redirected that person. She had helped with City Hall, and we now have her helping in police with some of the evidence work. We also have 2 people from Besh that when we closed down Besh, pulled their people in and have them in the evidence building and helping to do a lot of work that needs to be done is another topic because there's a lot there. And so we reallocated them to get that work done. Our plan now that we have, we believe that before 1 o'clock today, when we thought we had to have absolute costs and defendable costs, we believe that part-time person would be a good addition to keep the momentum going in the documentation of the evidence that hasn't happened in 20 to 30 years. I still believe that that's a good use of that person because we have money coming from COVID and we're putting into the police department to keep that position for another 6 months as a part-time, unbenefited person to keep the momentum in getting done what needs to be done at the police department. So you'll see a reduction by 19,604, even on the COVID side from what you had. The number that you have in there, and Jeannie, help me if which number went down, but from what you saw and what we have in our current model, Jeannie, is 19,000 lower?
Yeah, council was given a budget of COVID-funded budget of 137,118, and that went down to jump into my budget model. Library. That's down to 120,435.
Now it's still higher than just bringing it forward because I did build into the budget a switch out of the one admin person to a programming person. A library program coordinator is someone who runs almost like a teacher, runs programs, lesson plans, and things that get young people involved and gets their attention. Books, kids going to the library is more than just reading a book. There's a lot of activities, and having a dedicated person to research and develop and implement and teach these classes would be the next step in the library. It's not adding a position, but it's upgrading a position. I think from the 13 to the 1550, I think is where I priced that. So there's more money in that than last year because I budgeted that probably not to hit till January when we're free and clear, and then it would be something that we'd come to council and say, do we want to do this, yes or no? But I wanted to build that into the budget, so if we did want to do it, we have the money. So that's why it's still a little bit over budget. So, and then Jeannie, do you want to do public safety?
Mayor, I got a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Fernando. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I've been trying to chime in, but you guys couldn't hear me, so I hung up and called back in. Couple things. One is I had asked that question before regarding our investments. And way back when I was told that basically taxpayer dollars are highly regulated, and you can't just invest them like in the stock market or something because that's considered risk. So mostly you get your returns from like money market, or a CD rate. So a bank, it's basically your money's guaranteed, and that's why we don't get a very high return. There are some investments that we can go into, but they're also very, very low risk, which is very, very low return. The other thing, the question that I had that I couldn't ask earlier was, I know that municipalities cannot spend money if it's not budgeted. So we always kind of padded our budget just in case something happened that we could have the flexibility to move. What I don't understand is, how does that apply to revenues? Do we have to have accurate projections of where the revenue is coming from in order to spend that money, or do we just have to have the ability to spend it, therefore having it budgeted to spend in the event the money comes in? And I didn't know if Jeannie could answer that or Paul could answer that.
My quick answer is, as long as we have the capacity in there, we don't necessarily have to have the source. It doesn't, it would, in most cases, it doesn't make much sense to budget something without a source. But in grant funding, we budget a lot with a source to be determined later. But Jeannie, did you want to talk about that? Well,
in the general fund budget, you have to have a balanced budget. So for all of the expense that you have in there, you have to have revenue. When the revenue does not fall in line with our regular account items, that's when we have a transfer fund balance amount that we plug in there. And like we said, it doesn't always get spent, but the transfer fund balance amount covers the contingency that we're building into it, and it balances the budget. So that's the revenue source if you do spend all of your expenditures.
And we'll have to make sure that if our income, if our sales tax overperforms even what we're budgeting, we're going to make sure we have a relief valve so we can spend even a little bit more if it goes great guns for whatever reason. So we're going to be very careful to make sure to build some in there. But again, we have the 2-tier, what we're authorized to spend and then what we're budgeting to in the way of revenue. But we're going to make sure that we don't, I mean, that would be a horrible thing that, we have money that we can't spend because we didn't put the capacity in there. And the contingency would take that too. And that would take council action. If let's say we didn't realize we're going to get a big lump sum of money and something, I don't know, whatever, just, office furniture, I don't know, chairs. And then we could take the capacity from the contingency and use that. So we have that contingency is also a capacity that we can assign to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Department highlights, public safety. So here's the answer to your question, Mayor. The fire PSPRS contribution rate is going down from 68.6% to 53.9%, with a potential savings of $109,000. The other side of that is the police PSPRS contribution rate is going up from 58.3% to 66%, with a potential savings of $18,000.
So how do you get a savings with an increase? I guess.
So and that was something we were working with GovInvest to try to figure out. We didn't get a solid answer, so I didn't want to try to work through this. I will tell you that last year and the year before, while we were budgeted for 23 sworn, this is the first year we've ever had 23 sworn. Okay, but they do the rates based on the number of people that are in the system that year, not how many we budgeted. So as the number of people go down, the percentage per person goes up. The second thing, and Dale, if I screw this up, help me. As we go to tier 3 people, there's a little bit of difference there, but you definitely have to, let's say that we decided Dale was like the ultimate cop and he didn't need a staff and we just had one person in PSPRS. The percentage that we would pay on him would probably be about 3,000%, just because it's only one person. Okay, and you got to assign it. So the fewer people you have measured in the system, the more the percentage goes up. But in reality, the coming the money out the door, we're paying less, just a little bit less, but less, and that's what our thing shows. Anything that I missed on that explanation, Dale? You want to get on the mic, because I think people out there in land.
Sorry, Mayor and Council, I was trying my social distancing. So one of the things that have happened is we've actually filled the billet for the allotted positions within the police department, probably for the first time in about 10 or 15 years. And in doing so, this changes a lot of things. It changes how much money we're spending in overtime. It changes how much money we're spending in PSPRS. And so there's a number of different adjustments in there. And so I'll be standing up here because we're about ready to get to the overtime thing here in a minute. So everything Paul said is coincides with what you're seeing on the numbers up there.
Why do you think there's an increase? So if we have full staff now, why is the increase to 58 to 68.6? Since we have more people.
Well, part of it's the adjustment with PSPRS, and I think part of it has to do with the statewide numbers too. So they adjust year to year, and they budgeted for it, but I think it adjusted last year also.
It's a lag. There's about a year lag on what the percentages are based on what we capped out at the end of 19. So I think the full budget won't even hit until next year, and that year lag is just makes it so hard to predict. And I'm going to try to get you a better answer. I haven't gotten it clear, but we'll keep working and see if we can explain that. Because yeah, it's a head scratcher. How the percentage went up and the the rate went down. We were happy the rate went down, or the cost went down. So, and one of the, and I'm going to set you up here for the question. We budgeted for 23 sworn, and we last year when we budgeted 1920, I remember we said, okay, 48,000 for overtime. Overtime had not been tracked very well. We also have the situation with PD having to serve on parades and stuff like that. But this goes way past the parades and everything like that. The biggest question, didn't know what Dale's staffing model. I don't think you knew what your staffing model was going to be because you just hadn't had a chance. And so we took a number out of 48,000, what we put in there, and said we're going to use this as a baseline and figure it out later. But the question I had, and I've told somebody this, but some I haven't. Usually when you have under employed, like I say, you're not fully staffed. Your overtime that you need because you're understaffed is backfed by the lack of paying salaries. So if you have empty positions, you have salary savings, you use that. The overtime, it kind of works out. And I asked Dale, I think this weekend, it's like, what's going on here? Because, you had all these openings and you had all this overtime, but your staff, your salaries were still high. And so you said.
So the issue being is I reported to council in November that we had hit full staffing for the first time in X amount of years. And I explained that was on paper though. So when we hit that, we had actually hired a number of people, and they were in some level of training. We had a number of people in training in November, and then we added the final complement to the police department, and they went to the police academy. Some of those men and women are still in training, and so they're not actually filling a beat. So they're doubled up with training officers, so we're not getting the full utilization out of those positions yet. So if we're down bodies, they can't count as a full body yet because they still have to complete training. So since November, we've been finishing up the training. We started at the academy, and now we're finishing up in field training. And by the end of this month, the beginning of the next fiscal, will be the first time that actually everybody within the police department will be fully deployed. In addition to that, we had a long-term illness with an employee that person has been out of pocket for probably about 5 to 6 months on and off. And so those things make a significant impact on an organization of this size because you feel it. And so we also looked at the staffing models on here, and what we found is minimum staffing for this agency should be a minimum of 3 people on duty at all times because of the size of the geographic area, the number of calls for service, and so on. And so you try to staff the thing. So currently right now, because of COVID, we switched back from 10-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts. That puts an extra 4 hours of overtime on every single employee's sworn employee's paycheck every pay period. So that adds to it. And then on top of that, the staffing model itself, you want to make sure that you have proper coverage out there. So the idea behind it is you'd like to have at least 4 people on. That way, if somebody takes vacation, calls in sick, or is not here for whatever reason, training or whatever, you still have the minimum staffing. But if you don't have the minimum staffing, you need to try to call in personnel to backfill for that. And so in the beginning of this fiscal year, we were short a number of bodies, and to be able to fill those, we had to fill that with absent employee relief. So you should start seeing that taper off. In addition to that, we had switched schedules just before COVID hit to get off of the 12-hour shifts and put them on to 10-hour shifts, and we immediately had to move back to 12-hour shifts for that separation of squads. So we're hoping that by July, we're able to go back to the schedule that we've developed for the best coverage and minimize the overtime, but it really is going to depend on what's going on with COVID. There's one other caveat to this, too. We, as an organization, had not been covering the special events the way that they should be covered prior to me getting here. We are doing that now, but because we haven't come to a final decision on if we're going to charge or if we're not going to charge, we've been eating that extra overtime, which is fairly significant. It's a pretty good chunk of that, and I can work with Jeannie and get those numbers to Paul, just so council's aware as we move forward that that is a significant cost in overtime. The reason why is because we can't utilize the personnel that are assigned to work that area for their regular shift for the special events, because then they won't be available for calls for service, because we're at basically at minimum when we start the day. And if we add more duties to them, they're not going to be available. And you're looking at an agency that's running about 285 calls a week for these guys. That doesn't include the extra stuff that they do. Excuse me.
And I know with the Mr. Mayor, members of council, at these special events, I mean, Halloween, you pretty much had everybody out there walking, and the shifts were overlapping. Same with Christmas, the light parade. We had a full, and I know, was it you did like a all hands on deck staff meeting right before the Christmas, I think.
So one of the things is I know that we're going to be hitting for a lot of overtime on certain events. The Christmas parade is an excellent one. It's at night. There's thousands of people, a lot of moving parts to it. We want to make sure it's properly staffed. So we actually schedule that quarter's staff meeting, all hands on deck meeting, for that day. So 2 hours before that, everybody's here for one of the 4 all hands on deck meetings that we do every year. And so we try to schedule those around special events. That way we're not calling people in, disrupting them and stuff like that. And then they're here for that event, which has really turned out well for us the last couple of years. And we try to do that on major events. So in the fall, we kind of consolidate our quarterly meetings a little bit closer together so we can hit Halloween, which is a major event for us. The 2 biggest events that we have are Halloween and Christmas for the city. And then we also have the event in the spring. So it's those type of things that we try to work into it.
Questions? Fernando, anything?
Sorry, I got on mute. No, I'm good.
I do have one question on the CARES Act. Is that carried over into next fiscal year, first quarter? Does some of that money cover some of that 96,000 overtime? Could it potentially cover that?
I think some of the FEMA money is what would actually cover it for this year, because we've been tracking it. So us having to change our schedule to the 12 hours, so the overtime that we're accruing on the basic schedule because of COVID, and then any special events or anything else that we're doing because of it would be covered in that. But it doesn't necessarily carry over. So the tracking that we're doing in conjunction with FD and the rest of the city should be going into that.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think it'd be worthy to everybody and for our history, whether it's reimbursed we get FEMA reimbursement or AZ CARES money reimbursement. We're going to document and put together the additional costs that we expended, and there's productivity loss too, but the cost of this episode, the cost of this pandemic. It's good. So when it happens again, hopefully not, we know, but we're going to measure that, because I think it's fair to the departments who put out a lot. This team has pulled together. They've gone above and beyond to make sure they're there and doing what they have to. They're still out there, working away in their masks in the heat now and stuff. But we're gonna do some type of report that shows the extent of the cost to the budget, the impact of the budget of this. If we can seek it out through FEMA, if we have to backfill it through AZ CARES, we'll do that. But I think it's important that we don't just fudge it all together. I think we need to call it out.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, the only other thing on this slide, other than every budget we're doing increased PPE, we're making sure that we have enough and we have a little bit extra, and that we check this, make sure that it's not too old. I think we've all learned a lesson that there's certain things in life you just need to stockpile a little bit of a buffer on. But the decentralization of the fleet funding last year, and this is one of those things, like, I don't know if you remember, well, bad analogy, but government, some governments are pro-tariffs and some are anti-tariffs. So you study American history, it's all by the pro-tariff, anti-tariff, pro-tariff, anti-tariff. We have gone from decentralizing the fleet costs. I brought it in to centralize it, but now I'm convinced that seeing what's going on, that we need to decentralize the money, and instead of putting all of the money for fleet repair in one department, that each department have their own fleet budget. My idea is that the person that's best at tracking the money and being stingy with the money is the person who best benefits from the money. Also, we found that in this instance, fleet had to take a hiatus, and the departments needed to go and do their own getting the vehicles sent out, repaired, and back. And so they're managing some of the sending that out and back. So to have a fleet budget for each department, and this gets complicated because there's vehicle maintenance, there's vehicle repair, then there's equipment maintenance and equipment repair, and I think there might be one other that, as I recall. But so we have dispersed, and you'll see some juggling in the budgets from last year to this year. We took money out of fleet and put it into water, sewer, and public works. We also took added money in for PD doesn't have any equipment. Equipment would be like a backhoe, or a back truck, or a generator. They have, I think, one generator. So they don't have equipment money, but they do have their fleet money. And we did this disbursement based on the tracking of the spending. We have the TR, Jerry, what's the name of that program? The RTA. So the RTA tracks the expenditure. So we took the split that fleet was doing in the RTA and this divvied the funds up on those categories into, so that the police had some, fire has some, public works has some, and then we'll bill it through the department. And then both police and fire will have control, and they can use the fleet department to do the repairs, or they can go and use a local vendor to do the repair. A lot of it's how much it's going to cost and how quickly can it get turned around. When the fleet turned off, we need to get certain cars back on the road. No one knows what the importance of getting a car back on the road than that department, both fire, police, and public works. So you're seeing some changes in the budgets because of the reallocating fleet money back into the departments rather than sitting in fleet. And then and PP.
Ready? Paul, I understand, this is your job as the city manager to manage a budget, but by chance, did you collaborate with fire and police team to talk about this new decentralization?
Yes, they're supportive of it. I mean, on a daily basis, PD is struggling to make sure that they have enough cars for the bodies, and so when then they have that ability to, do I take it in now? Do I take it in later? How fast can I get it turned around? And so no, they're happy to have that that level of control as to how quickly the cars can get turned around and how to do that. Now, there's not independent of fleet, and the requirement is that they check the RTA, that they check the history. We have there's warranty work, and so there may be knowledge that is in the historical records of fleet that they need to know about this car eats transmissions like on a daily basis, and so we got to make that determination as to the cost benefit of repair or park. But they're happy to do that, and there's some things that fleet does very well, and if you have the time to do that, you can do that. And there's some things when they need to turn around, they can get it turned around locally.
Okay.
But now they've been in the loop on that, from fleet to public works to fire and police, in the loop.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'll tell you, Zoom, when you're budgeting, Zoom makes it so easy to get everybody on the call, everybody looking over. It used to be, Jeannie would be at her computer, and we'd have a table, and everybody be outside her little area, and we're all looking at spreadsheets and stuff, and she's doing this. Now we get Jeannie on the computer, and everybody can see the screen, and we can all talk about it. And so the allowing staff to get in and see what's going on and see the numbers. I even after this, I think Zoom is the tool for doing budget. So, Jeannie, I'm sorry. You want to go on?
I'm going to hit curfew.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Jeannie, you take this one.
I got it.
Oh, no, okay. Well, no, I got to take this one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, this is mine. Okay. So, I'm going to... Okay, so I'm going to go faster. We put money in the sanitation. This is the minimum additional costs that we see in the scenario. There are a lot of options in there. I I don't think this is quite the year to be buying and starting up our full-blown internal one. But for right now, this is a placeholder. We'll have a conversation about how we deal with trash and sanitation. But your flags would be flying if I started talking about this now. So just notice that money did go up, and we'll talk about that in the future. Again, we increased all PPE budgets. Securing future water, unless you have a question, Jerry's here to talk about it. I think the number 982 is a little bit lower than we had, but if you have any questions about that number in the Public Works budget, this would be the time to ask. Credit card monthly fees. The other thing is we're trying to track how much we spend on credit card fees, just to show that the credit cards come at a cost. But one thing I know right now, and did not realize this until recently, as a policy, previously we have not accepted credit card payment for permits. So if you want to pay one of our super low sign fees, we won't take a credit card. Okay. And so one of my things we're going to do, it is expensive. We could add it on to the additional cost and do that in the fee schedule, or just absorb that cost. But we're going to be looking at that. But I think one way or another, it is important that we allow somebody, a local business person that wants to get from Burger King pulling a permit to, Boutiques on Broadway, they should be able to just whip out that credit card, rerun a debit on it, and get that paid rather than having to write a check or cash a check, something like that. Does anyone on council have any issues with incurring those additional credit card charges for doing permits?
Well, I think we have to pass it on to the user. I mean, I'm not in favor of increasing the permits, but it comes at a cost to us. And what is the cost? 2%, 3%? I don't know.
I talked to Jody
Probably
about this,
varies.
and it changes whether it's online, it's in the place, or anything like that. I don't know. We would average it out to a flat rate, and I think $250 is a good number that I've seen. That would be well worth it. Yeah, and so, but we would have to bring that back with the fee increases we do, and if it's a fee we're going to charge, we'd have to do that. But I want to make sure council's on board with not doing not accepting credit cards.
My question was just what company do you use, because there's companies out there that will pass that directly straight onto the user. You don't even see that fee coming out anymore.
Jeannie, who do we use? SpeedX or something like that? Express Bill Pay.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my company does this, and we use a third-party credit card payment, and so the fees go directly to the third party. We're totally out of it. The only problems that we're experiencing is if there's a glitch in a number or a digit that's off whenever that person enters their account number, the bank won't recognize it, and it automatically labels that as a NSF, non-sufficient fund. And so now there's a kickback on that, because now that customer's got to pay their $25 on top of their fee because there was an inaccurate digit that was entered. So
what company is that?
That one's Paymentus.
What's that?
Paymentus.
Paymentus? Oh.
So, and that might be a similar thing. I mean, I'm not downplaying Paymentus. I'm just saying those are the experiences that we're experiencing. So it's a third-party company. Customers use their credit card, go to third party. Third party then transfers the money into AWC's account. But there can be problems if there's not the accurate digits in that are entered in the payment. So, and a lot of times, being a water purveyor and a good citizen, good working partner, we'll waive that cost. We'll eat it. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Well, and so
and there's some other gory details about things that happen. There are some account holders that know that their utility won't get turned off as long as they say I have a confirmation number. But they use the confirmation number just to keep us from disconnecting, even though it comes back as an insufficient fund.
For those living in the Arizona.
So there's just things out there that you have to be careful. I mean, do your homework.
Yeah, I think we've had some good luck, some, but it probably wouldn't be a bad time to relook at our vendor and see if there's a better options recently out there that on the fees, or at least lowering the transaction fees. But I do hear that we need to address this, allow people to do permits with a credit card, and then find a way whether we lower the fee, or I'm okay with tacking it on as that, and then they can choose. If they don't want to pay the fee, they can go get a cashier's check. That'll cost them. So, and then the sewer line common replacement. Sorry, we had made a commitment to $60,000 in there. We had another. We transferred the 33 that we didn't spend this year to make it a 93, and so $60,000 additional money. Plus we're carrying forward the 33. So it gets us at 93, and that'll allow us to get some more meaty projects. I think we got a good thing going. Keep that funded, and let's try to knock down the low hanging fruit and those people who just the situation with common law.
I got to ask the question, and to Jerry, because you put that number in red. Is that an average number that you usually budget annually for securing water, or is that an increase?
It's figured on a $1.70 increase based on annual basis, and then that water will that money in that fund will convert over to our meter revenue. So it's on a yearly basis. It's just over $1 million.
No, it's 982,000.
And it's in red because it's changed from what you had seen.
From what you had on what we gave you Friday.
Thank you, Jerry.
That's what it is. It's put in and it's mandated to use for that only.
It's considered restricted funds.
And Mr. Mayor, we're starting the last piece of this puzzle is.
We're not doing individual departments.
That was kind of my thought was we did the highlights of things you may have seen on there. I think now would be the time for any members of council that had looked over this and has questions about this after our cursory review. This would be the time to talk about those. But I didn't want to go. I would get the flag pretty quick if we went through every department.
Well, I think if we all had a chance to review each individual budget.
But if you have questions now,
if you have any questions that you have for any of the department heads that are here, I mean, I think that's why they came tonight.
Mayor, I don't have a question for an individual budget line item, but I don't know. In the past years of doing the budgets, I've yet to see an asset inventory of what we have and what assessment of those assets are and the future plans to replace them. So what it would cost us to replace them or to repair them, and how far out we would be on all the assets owned by the city.
The Jeannie.
So the asset inventory is not part of the budget. That's what the auditors do on their audit every year. So I don't know. Did you get a copy of the financial statement?
That's what I'm asking, because CIP is coming up, and in CIP we're going to be talking about things that the department heads want. And so seeing that asset inventory and having an assessment of all the assets as far as, what it's going to actually cost to fix these would give me a better understanding of how much money you might need for X, Y, and Z.
So when we have... You being good? Yeah. All right. So we have a like I say, we have from brand new to very old cars. We have equipment, buildings, and I think, Shelley, wouldn't that come out of our liability insurance list? We did an audit. We just audited, make sure that have every vehicle we have that's running insured, to make sure that we don't have vehicles that we dispose of or not. So I think that would be probably the starting point. That would at least give you a physical list does it have a value tied to it? Yeah. So I think that would be something we could send out tomorrow, and then have that as we come forward with that. Thank you.
I have one question if we're wrapping up budget.
Yeah, no, I opened it up because I guess we're gonna go to every individual department, but if you have a question to review, after reviewing each department, they're here and we can ask questions within those. So that's what we opened it up for.
It's not in the department though. I just didn't see a line item for that. Remember we discussed at the last meeting about the cleaning service?
Yeah.
I didn't see that in the.
And I just have not. I've not had a chance to meet with him. We have a meeting, I think, at 2:00 tomorrow, and do the reval on that. And so I intended to bring that forward as somewhat as a CIP because it's a new item, not a existing item. And so we will have the opportunity to include that as part of the CIP budget, even though it would have to come out of it would be an ongoing cost. But yeah, we're gonna try to reconfigure it based on council direction.
I do have a couple of questions for fire. Chief, on the 80,000 overtime that you're showing, is that include wildland and regular overtime?
So we have incorporated both of those into a single line item. And then we track that going forward. When we do payroll, when we document that within our staffing system that we use, we document those costs so that, down the road, if we come to a position where we've expended those funds, we have a clear record showing what we've actually recouped back into the system related to wildland.
Yeah, because that all comes back in the end, the reimbursement there. And then just one other question on you said fleet maintenance is going to each department, and the same with PD. I guess you guys have looked at those numbers, and I look at 23,000 on two different line items for vehicle maintenance and vehicle repairs, and that's really not a whole lot. If you have a major breakdown with an engine, even brakes or something like that, you're talking big money. I don't know. And on PD, I don't know what the amount is for fleet maintenance.
Before we go, Mr. Mayor, members of council, one of the things we do need to do is make sure we do have go back and look at the sum total of the costs that we spent by department and by even to the point of vehicle. And so there may be some adjustments to that before we get to the end, but we're trying to track down kind of how the money was divvied up and how much. Some was in the RTA, some was not. And so we got some looking into actual bills for vehicles that weren't included in the RTA to get a number. So we can go not just make up a number, but go with a history. We love to budget on a history. We're still trying to determine the history on some of these costs, but
and that's going to be one of the challenges we have is getting the history back and looking at what exactly we've expended. So we went with, I think when we looked at that, we went with kind of what we could clearly articulate and show, and then we're delving into that further to try and determine if, because I believe we're probably on the repair side, we're probably a little bit low. On the maintenance side, I think we're probably fine, but the repair side is going to be a challenge. But we had to start somewhere, and that was kind of where we had to, with the information that we had on hand at the time, where we could go off of.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, especially in police and fire, if a vehicle breaks, we're going to fix it. Okay. What our task is to figure out what that historic is and make sure we have the money that we can get to pay those bills, because we don't have the luxury of parking a fire truck and waiting until the next budget cycle, and so or a cruiser on some of these. So in order to get the budget right, and so we don't come to council and say, oh, we overshot our fleet budget or overshot our vehicle maintenance, we're going to try to do better and kind of get some numbers, tighten up the number on the historical expenditures, and at least we can say we're doing this because of history. Right now we're doing it because of RTA history. Just stay away from them.
This is my favorite topic, Mayor and Council. A couple things. The first thing I would tell you that is, as the fleet gains age and utilization, it's going downhill quickly. So I don't know that the historical numbers are going to help us as much as if we just look at the last 4 months. What we're seeing right now, in particular with PD fleet, there's days that we struggle to get enough vehicles together to be able to man them and put officers out on the road, and it's just part of the cost. Right now, because of the amount of time that we're spending with it, I have one person dedicated over fleet, which is Sergeant Boyd, and he's spending about 15 to 20 hours a week dealing with fleet. I think John and Brandon and Jerry have done a phenomenal job for a long time, but just the sheer amount of work, just my fleet alone and the size of it, is just kind of somewhat overwhelming, and it's working a little bit better to have us be directly involved, because it has to do a lot with speed of getting the vehicles back out, as the city manager said earlier, just because of the fact that we don't have the luxury of having backups and stuff like that. So the projection of it is going to be a very difficult thing to do as we go, because it's going downhill rapidly. But we've got some really good numbers over the last 4 months to the year that we could build off of that. We got a plan in place, and we'll see where it takes us.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we'll double check that we got realistic and doable numbers in there.
Early.
I would like to know if a police car has ever broken down on the way to a call.
Yeah, we've had 3 of them in the last month and a half.
3.
Yes.
Oh, I don't want you coming to my house with a broken down car. and I mean, people don't want to hear that when the police don't come. They don't want to hear it's because the car broke down.
That's been going on for years, correct, Chief?
I can't speak for years. I can speak since I've been here. I would tell you that, fleet kind of bent over backwards when I first got here, trying to help us get stuff squared away. I think it's just a little overwhelming for us at this point. When I've only got 3 bodies to deal with, and now I have 23, there's a lot more need, and there's just a lot more volume that's going on. But we're really seeing it now. So it is something that we do have to address as a city. What that looks like, I've been working hand in hand with Paul, and he's been extremely supportive, and it's been beneficial. It's just a matter of time. The problem is the rate that they're deteriorating is fairly quickly, and whatever we do, it's going to take time to start rebuilding those things. So we're working on it, and we've got a couple of different ideas, and so it's really going to be ultimately up to council and the city manager at the end of the day of what we do.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, and to Councilman Leatham's question about a replacement plan, that's something that we've always wanted to do, and we're going to try to go back to that and put something, a comprehensive replacement plan that doesn't fizzle after the first year. A lot of times our 5-year plans only make it a year and a half, and so we got to stop doing that. That's why we got to where we are. So I think now is a good time to put those plans in place, and I hope that I think we'll be in a better position, especially with what we're seeing, to make that a reality, both in fire and police. So,
thank you.
I'd have something with taking the money out of fleet and leaving them with 300 and 600. I see that in economic development you haven't added vehicle repair or vehicle maintenance.
Yeah.
So are you going to add that, or are you going to add more money into fleet to take care of that?
No, I'm gonna allow, just as I allow fire and police to take care of their vehicles, I'm going to allow economic development to take care of their vehicle.
And code enforcement as well?
I'm not sure on code enforcement because of the, I'd like to, yeah, I could do that.
Well, I just wanted to know.
Yeah, no, it's to be consistent. Yeah. To be consistent. I forget that I was just running the math, but yeah. I mean, that vehicle is probably going to need a little bit more money because it's a little bit older and long in the tooth, and but I think we manage that.
And the active adult center as well.
And those vehicles, I'm trying to remember. They have vehicles that are serviced, or we get those. Jeannie, how do we get those? The active adult vehicles. Do we own those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Under grant, but we don't actually take possession of them until so many years or so many miles.
I knew there was something different about them because
They're bought under a grant for the.
And I think we have two of those cool little meal delivery.
And we actually own the van and
Others.
and one of them.
So those are line items that you'll be adding into.
On the I can definitely on the code, and let me look into what the best way to go on active adult is, whether they want as how to make that work and show that. But I do believe the concept to have the department responsible for those costs, and we should be consistent, and so on that I think we can go and make sure that we get a little bit more granular with that.
A couple more questions. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
This one's for John. I see a $2,000 decrease in overtime in public works. What is the reason for that, or is that cost enough to cover overtime for the next fiscal year? We're down to $4,000 a year for overtime.
Yeah, there should be a mic back there. Here, you want? And I.
You want me to?
So our guys have been working a lot more overtime, not only for the COVID, but since we're down the inmates and so forth, we've been trying to take care of what we have to do for the city. So been working a lot more overtime, and so they added that into the budget this year.
But John, do you want to talk about the comp time change?
But it was a drop from last year. It was 6,200 on the fiscal. Now we're down to 4,000.
You're saying that we're lowering it or increasing it?
You're lowering it.
Okay.
You're lowering it by $2,000.
We're lowering a lot of the overtime.
Yeah. Is that the COVID number or the projection?
That's the actual green.
Okay.
So a lot of that reason is because we filled up a lot of the positions, and that's a bad example now because we're down 3 or 4 right now. But at one point we were no.
Oh, no 3. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, at one point we were fully staffed, and we did have the opportunity to have other people cross train. So I think that's part of it. Plus, we watch our budget pretty close. Want to add anything, John? But that doesn't really add to a reduction. But we've done away with the comp time and the flex time, and we're only flexing out when the supervisor, like if a guy wants to come in an hour early and leave an hour early, that's up to the supervisor. But we don't let them work 2 hours overtime today and then take 2 hours off 3 weeks from now. So it was too hard to control, and it was giving payroll nuts and making them nuts. So.
And that's the reason I asked, because if you cut the comp time or the flex time, then you're going to have to use the overtime. You're going to have to have the overtime.
I think that this year is going to be a challenge until we get caught up on some of the things we're behind as well. So.
No, and let me relook at that, because I know that we were going to be utilizing more overtime, but I can't remember all the numbers going in my head. Yeah, if we reduce that doesn't make sense that we would reduce it. I'm not sure what we were thinking. It's probably, Jeannie, is it in the notes? Is there any notes that we mind?
About the public works overtime?
Yeah.
What I'm seeing is that we had budgeted $6,222 last year. I'm estimating that cost to come in at $2,000. The costs through April 17th were $1,159.65. Our notes for the $4,000 that we are budgeting says, per Paul and John, make this $2,500 for regular OT and 1,500 for special event OT.
Now, the other thing that we're doing is we shift around the percentage. There are certain people that sometimes they pull from the general fund, sometimes they pull from water, sometimes from sewer, sometimes from HERF. And so sometimes the percentages transfer over, but I don't think we percentage out OT.
No, that wasn't a factor. This is just on the public works budget.
So most of our overtime is in the enterprise. So we have our call-outs are mostly
for enterprise in the evenings. The overtime for public works is more for special events and traffic control, that kind of thing. So you'll see a lot more overtime probably in the enterprise. And I think we have a budget now for the special events too.
We have 2 different line items.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you. And one more question. Under economic development, I went to that line item and I don't see any funding or any line item for any marketing. If we look in the past, the history of it and everything that's been done, we're talking about an average of a 21% deficit or 11%, but you're talking in some high months that were there. Was that part of the plan that we had begun and we were attracting tourism, we're doing economic development, and now more than ever, we're going to have some marketing money in order to get our community back to where it was, or back up to where we were before this all happened. So I don't know if we can add. I don't see any marketing money in there. I see advertising.
It's in the community action item. That 30,000 in the community action, part of that is designated for marketing.
Is that marketing? Okay.
But we put an 80% on that, limiting that to 6,000. Mayor, I think you're talking about maybe we don't wait till the pandemic's over, that we do our marketing sooner. And so I think what we could do is we could ratchet that off and take it from 80% to 50%, make it available now for that. And that we would not be raising any more money, but we would bring it on board early on sooner.
Because we're going to need it now, not 6 months down the road.
Linda, is that the bucket that you would pull from the community action bucket? Okay, good. So we can bump that up earlier and have it come online, 15,000 right off the bat.
That's all I have. Ready?
Yeah, I have a question for Leanne, or a couple. In advertising, we have 20,000. Well, that was the 2020 budget. Does that get you a lot of advertising, or is advertising really expensive?
Yeah.
She had her footwork on, so she can't get up on it.
Yeah, so that's our normal budget for advertising, and if you look back in the past, we usually spend all of that. Advertising is very expensive, so.
And then, obviously, you buy a substantial amount of items, gift shop items for resale. Do you see a pretty good profit margin on those?
We do. I don't have numbers right off the top of my head, but I mean, that's one of our main sources of income.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we were getting these weeklies, there was always a profit margin.
Yeah.
So just curious, because those two numbers kind of stand out in your budget, and I just wanted to make sure that
those
it's substantial enough.
They're very important. I mean, without advertising,
right?
Nobody knows about
Right. Yeah,
us.
you got to draw people in. I get it.
And without selling stuff in our gift shop, we're really not going to make any revenue off of $5 admission. You're just not,
Right.
Right. So they're two big ones for us.
Okay. Thank you. Shirley?
So my question is, you do well with that gift shop, that teeny tiny little space you have.
Yeah.
You do well with that. How can you make that bigger and better?
Well, I had plans on asking for some CIP to do that, but with the current situation, I kind of put that on hold because I don't think it would be. Now's not the time to ask for money to blow out walls and that sort of thing with everybody else's budgets being, everybody's kind of being having their hand held to the fire, so I kind of feel like maybe that should be held off. But I did have plans on asking for some money to expand that space so I could introduce more merchandise.
Talk about how you talked about how you redesigned it. I think you moved the Baptist. It would expand into the conference area?
Yeah, so we have that big auditorium, which we use it, but it's so big, it's kind of a wasted space. You could literally cut that space in half and use it for something else rather than just this big room that echoes when you walk in. So my plan, or my thought was, oh, that's my alarm on my phone. Sorry. It's bedtime now. It's not my bedtime alarm, but anyways, so the plan was, I don't know, you'd have to visualize when you walk in the front door. It'll go off. We'll have background noise. When you walk in the front door, if you look to the left, there's the doorway for the auditorium. Well, just to the left of that is wall space that separates the gift shop from the auditorium. My thought was to basically blow out that wall and make a big entryway and make a room in the auditorium, so making the auditorium smaller and having that be a larger gift shop space. But it's not as easy as that because that central wall that separates the two it's a metal building, so you'd have to cut through it. Yeah, because they've added on to that building over the years, so the original structure is like an aluminum metal something or other. Thank you, Linda. So that was my plan. I had already I'd measured and shopped for, got prices for merchandise displays and what would fit where and what I could put on it. I hadn't gotten as far as how much revenue it would make us because COVID hit and I kind of just shelved the idea. But that was kind of the thought. I'd like to do it eventually. Yeah.
Isn't that a low barrier?
That you'd have to ask.
You probably better have that checked before you.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, the idea sounds good. Easier said than done, but that was kind of the vision I had. If it were up to me, I'd completely tear down the building and build a whole new one and redesign it because they built it weird. The entrance is, I'd like to have the entrance over here, and I'd like this and that. So, just about every day I walk in there and look at something like, oh gosh, if I could just tweak that, or if I could just move that, or if I could just do this. But, so I don't plan on asking for it in CIP this year just because I think it's bad timing.
Do we sell those gift shop items online currently at all?
No. That's something we could probably do if I had more time and more staff. It's just not something I can handle right now.
Okay.
Really. But it'd be cool if we could.
Yeah.
A lot of people, Pickle Barrel does it. So, maybe we could. But currently where we're at with staff and resources, no.
Okay.
And Mayor, Members of Council, Deanna, while you're here, thank you so much for allowing your two very highly competent and
I hear they're doing a good job.
over there.
Maybe too good.
Yeah, I know I might not get them back.
It's offering them, weaponry and badges and
One would probably go for it. The other one, I don't know.
But it's been very kind of you to let them go over and help out. They're really making a difference, and I promise you will get them back.
Yeah.
In some
I think they're having fun. Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I don't have anything for the library, but I'm still thinking about you. I know that you continue to do things for the general public, for the library, and upgrading as best you can with flooring and shelving and things like that. So, I just want to say, just because we're in a situation with a pandemic and limited resources, I don't think that should limit you department heads to put together your thoughts and your requests, because we still don't know where we are. But if something happens where we take a turn and everything looks good, now you've lost that opportunity. So, just food for thought.
And Mr. Mayor, Members of Council, it wasn't until we did the budget presentation to director and manager level staff today, because this person, we're just very new to the new numbers, and they were with that, and so I've had asked them that they still have an opportunity to get CIP requests. I may reach out and make sure that kind of do some brain picking, see if there's anything that might be appropriate. But Adria, do you want to give a quick update on the flooring? Because we almost cut the flooring, but we went forward with it. And Mayor, 90 seconds. The mayor's got that look in his eye.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. The flooring absolutely looks amazing, and I have to say, we're really grateful for it. We're thankful for it. It smells really good. And Ruben Avalos worked extremely hard. I mean, he was there moving those shelves, and it was not an easy job. And I have to also say, I'm incredibly thankful for my staff who helped. We all pitched in and boxed over 300 books, or 300 boxes worth of books. And those were just the books alone. And then we have the filing cabinets that we were moving, desks that we were moving, a lot of heavy things that we were moving. But it definitely was a team effort, and so I'm thankful that this project was able to get completed. So when we do reopen, the public will be able to come back to a much cleaner place. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for Public Works. I'm thankful for my staff. And thank you all for letting this happen.
Early.
So I saw some toilets sitting outside. Does that mean you got some new ones over there?
Woo!
All right.
Yeah, we really did.
Good.
The Friends of the Library purchased brand new toilets.
And you have that grant that has the COVID or
So I applied for the CARES Express grant, and we heard back from that grant, and we did get awarded that grant. They sent a whole list of items, which are things like masks, disposable masks, hand sanitizer, gloves. I think there are a few other things on that list. And so we got awarded 10 kits. Yes, we got awarded 10 kits. So we're really excited about that. Hopefully we'll get those in the next couple of weeks. And then we have not heard back from the CARES Expanded Act, which is the one that entails $4,000 to help with things like public health signage, sneeze guards for different areas in the library, hand washing station, and things like that. So we haven't heard back from that one yet.
Thank you, Adria.
Thank you.
Any other, still doing budget questions, I think.
Nando, you good?
He went to bed.
I heard that.
Okay, so then if we want to, then we'll move to the insurance costs. As everybody knows, we have insurance coverage. There's a cost to that, and there's an increase of 7.9 this year. And this is these sheets are not the easiest to read, but I will tell you that the amount that this has gone up, I think 100. What we have done is in the past between 4 and 5 years, I've have to count them. We have been absorbing these increases to this. We've created the PPO, and that's in there. We're about 50-50 on the split. We got 41 HMO, 52 PPO, but council has kept both options. With a 7.9% increase, we're looking about I think 129,000. Jeannie, was it that additional to the city if we carried that full amount? What I'm proposing, what we are proposing, is to hold the city costs stable except for PPO 1 only, and that would be the that single employee, the lowest level insurance, where that somebody could come in and at least have an option that they didn't lose anything out of their paycheck for that. But then we have the HMO, which is a little bit more generous, and then you have employee plus 1, employee and family, and so about $128,000 we're talking about. Which slide is up? Can you move up to just go to the third slide? Let's just go to the cut to the chase. There we go. And so in this slide, this shows the increase to the employee. Again, the first line, health PPO, the city would pay the additional $62. The employee pays no additional money. For employee plus 1 on PPO, they would pay an additional $62, and as I can look up real easily, which be total for the month is $252, so that'd be half of that would be $125 plus, and of that would be the $62 increase, so it would go up by that 62. And then if it was health PPO family, they'd pay an additional $87 a pay. So you see that that money would increase, that cost would increase, that would be subtracted from their paycheck. The HMO, we don't hold that constant for the employee. We're $33 if you're a single additional. It would be $66 additional for employee plus 1, and $93 per pay additional for those people with a family.
And that's per month.
That would be per paycheck. The number in the bottom here is this is the additional number. Do you want to pull down the next and I make sure that we have the right one? Shelley, if you look at that, is the one on the screen, is that showing the employee per month or is that employee per paycheck? Per month. And so if you had the original one had employee by paycheck, I think that you're looking at.
We have per pay period here and then per monthly here.
Let me pull up. I can see this myself. Let me quit looking at that one. Yeah. Okay. So, let me do it this way. PPO employee plus one, they would pay $126 per paycheck. That's a $62 increase. PPO employee family, they would pay $221. Let's see. Oh, it'd be $126 a pay, and then $221 a pay, increasing $87 a pay.
Where are you at?
And
I don't see
this would be.
I don't either.
Go ahead, Jeannie, help me.
I don't see those numbers that you're saying either. So I'm looking at the slide that's up there.
Right.
Oh, you guys are looking at the slides up there. Let me look at that one. I was looking at the older one. I thought you had the older one. But if you're looking at the slide, I'll go back to the slide, which is this one. Okay. So just know in the one that we're looking at on the bottom here, the red numbers on the right are per month, and so health PPO employee plus one, $252 a month, but the increase on the bottom, $62 additional per pay. Okay, and then
But $62
doesn't equal
pay doesn't equal $252.
no, that's how much more they would than last year.
Going to go up whatever they're paying now.
Okay, so
plus.
that isn't the increase. 252 isn't the increase. It's 62.
The increase is 62. The cost to the employee would be $252 a month.
That's confusing.
Yeah, it is.
If you look at this slide, I think you see it better.
The $252 is what they pay now. And then it's going to increase another 120.
In that number, that 252, the increase is $62 as a subset of that.
So it's baked into the 62 is baked into the 252.
So the 252 is the most you can that they're going to be.
That's what they'll pay.
penalized. Correct.
Or employee plus one.
Well, last year for PPO employee plus one was $108 per month. 7%.
Okay.
That doesn't make.
No, because
That's 50%.
Shelley, I think on the last year you have it employee by pay. This year we have it employee by month.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, so it would be. Employee by pay would be
Right.
256.
Yeah, that's what's fine.
256.
The city was to absorb these costs. How much would the city have to pay right now
It would be $129,000
for this year?
more additional. But
On top of
what are we already paying?
What's that?
What are we already paying?
The grand total I think would be 1.47. Let's look at the other slide.
We're currently paying.
Right now we're scheduled to pay $1.426 million, and so then we would be picking up an additional $126,000 if we picked up the 7.9%, and that would put us at. Janie, we had that number somewhere?
Paul, so the city's part is increasing 7.9%, and the employee's part is increasing 7.9%?
No. Right now, the cost is increasing 7.9%. And what we're doing is we're asking the employee to pick that up in the additional contribution. Now, Danny, can you throw that slide that I asked you to slide up there?
Okay, but
You got a question?
yeah, because why is it fair to have an employee that is a single employee pay nothing? So they're getting a gift of $787 a month. Because if you're an employee plus one or an employee with family, you're paying not just the increase, you're paying a portion of the premium. But the employee that's just a single employee isn't paying anything. See, that's not fair to me.
I think a lot of cities do a lot more for the single employee, and then we used to have a policy where we would only pick up no more than 2/3 of the additional dependents. Now we're picking up about 82% of that, a lot more of that, even up to 90%. So I would think for the HMO and PPO, HMO is a richer program, and so that's why we're not doing it for a single there. But I think it's as a recruitment tool, having at least one option that allows no additional cost for initial employees is a tool.
But we're always going on about the gift clause. How is this any different? How are we not gifting the employee $787 when the married ones that have kids aren't getting the gift?
No, we are compensation packages are part of any time you're hiring somebody. It's not a gift to them. It is a deal that we strike. Now, we don't sit down and negotiate with every person, but it is a deal that we strike that is a combination of your salary, health insurance, do we have dental, do we have short-term disability. Those are things that we help pay for as a compensation package that we can negotiate with individuals. Now, we don't sit down. It's like, we don't sit down and haggle about this with our benefits, but we offer this, and we have the ability to be flexible in that. I mean, we could offer insurance and not pick up a penny of it. We could offer insurance and cover every cost. I think either of those are.
Which we are. Wait, excuse me, we are. We are covering every cost for an employee that has no dependents. Yep. So we are doing that, but only for certain employees.
Right. I don't think we could afford.
I don't agree with that.
I don't think it'd be fair to cover the full cost of dependents. But
and I want to make sure that we have the opportunity for all our council to have an input on this. So if you have a comment on it, I'd like to hear that. Jesse.
Thank you. I think with Councilwoman Giles saying that, with the gift clause and what we were trying to do last year with some kind of bonus that we soon found out we could not do. And given the current situation we're in present, I think $126,000 right now doesn't seem like a lot to pick up and rehash this next year. And seeing where we are, I don't think that given the current circumstances and kids have been home for how long, it's not, to me, in my mind, it doesn't seem fair to penalize our employees yet again. I mean, we pushed that off to them last year.
No, only to the people with HMO. We ate the increase on the PPO. But Danny, can you put the slide up? I just want to.
And to Councilwoman Giles' point, if we are going to give that $700 difference to the employee, then you need to come up with some kind of cost to give back to the families. So if you're saying, okay, we're going to eat the whole cost of $700 and you get free insurance, well then restructure this to where you take $100 off or $50 off each one of those and come up with a price there of what the city might have to eat at that point.
The what we have up here, this is the history of the increases. And Danny, if you can go full screen. Oh, I can pull it up too on my. Hang on, let me pull up my version. I had Danny help me with this because when I was thinking about this. So in 16-17, we paid the $109,000 additional cost for insurance, and we paid with it out of the what's the name for that fund, Jeannie? Not the one I call it, the
retention surplus.
The retention fund. Okay, and so that was helpful and it didn't hurt our budget. But then the next year, that 109 reverted back to operational budget. The next year, it went up $123,000, and so again, we used the retention fund to hold us to not be so painful, and we put that there. But then the next year, that retention fund money wasn't used, and we went over and we're $232,000 additional. So then in 18-19, it went up $71,000, and so we covered that cost there, and with the retention money. But again, that was only 1 year coverage. That increase doesn't go away. So then in 1920, 135,000 that we covered with additional. Now they're on 1920. I think we had there were some that we didn't cover. HMO, we let the people using an HMO pay that. We cover the PPO. That's 135,000, and now that's baked into the cake. And right now, I think it's 114, not the 128, because we are picking up a little bit. 128 is the total cost of the increase. We're already looking at about 14,000 that we're going to do for that HMO. I'm sorry, the PPO 1, and so we're looking at bringing in another 114,000 that we would cover, and that means next year. Over those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we've increased the cost of insurance at $552,000, and it doesn't go down. So every year we cover those costs. It's baked in the cake. So they're pretty much.
I understand your slide, and I respect that you put this together, but to use your words, you don't believe in COLAs. So if you continually grasp a city employee's paycheck over and over and over again, eventually what you just said was going to be a recruiting tool will no longer be a recruiting tool, but used to deter somebody from coming to the city to work for us.
So, and I will tell you that my worry is, and it's a balance it to a point, and that's why I wanted to say we pick up at least the single to one, and keep that an aspect that recruiting tool. But if the percentage of the benefits over above the salary, I mean, PSPRS and COPS are, you pay $7 for every $10 of salary. We're only about $3 or $4 for every $10 of salary, but it goes up and up, and each additional employee just puts that burden on there. Plus, it's all going to grow. So I'm worried that at some point, each new employee that we bring on is going to be so expensive that it's going to hamper our ability to bring on new employees. And so that's my fear. I thought since we have a history of doing so well in helping employees, year after year after year, we've covered the cost. I thought, okay, 1 year, let's go where the employees have, to see that. I think employees need to know that health insurance is expensive and health insurance costs go up. But we don't have a history of every year whittling away at it. But I thought this year, with the budget situation and the increase situation, this was a good year to say, this year we're gonna hold our costs constant and ask the employees to cover that increase. That was my thought.
Okay, so
go ahead, because I want to give other councilmen an opportunity.
Okay, so. But we don't have a budget decrease. We have a budget increase, A. B, we cannot use the example of fire and police because fire and police can get killed and do quite often in their line of work. So that's not, I don't want to use that as an example.
Oh, I know they're different, but the concept of...
Vastly different.
Yeah,
vastly different than sitting behind a computer or getting a gun, getting your head blown off or getting burned up. Vastly different.
Yeah.
So I'd rather we don't use that as an example. And we don't have a budget decrease. We're looking at this, and it's not a decrease. Okay.
And I'm so happy that we don't have this. Is a good
Me
problem
too.
to have. This is a good problem to have.
Any other comments? I do. I personally think, and through you, Mayor, this isn't the right time to do this, the increase. People are having a hard time now as it is with the COVID problem that we're having. What to do with their children. Increased cost per family. to throw this additional cost on right now, I think is the wrong thing to do, especially if we are in the black instead of in the red. Yeah. So maybe next year we can start bringing it back into them, but I think right now we have the extra money. I think we should pick it up. That's my feeling.
And I mean, there's never a good time to do this. When we obviously we haven't seen it in the past 6 years, a good time to do it. But I'm hoping. Then I don't know. I have my opinion. I just stop. But I see your point about the families hurting and some people. But I mean, thank you for sure.
Yeah, thank you. So, I don't want to poke holes in everybody's theory. People are hurting, but there are people that are still working. And in a larger scope, I really feel like we are the stewards of this community's purse. And if we're going to continue, and we've shown here for 4 or 5, going on 4 years in a row, that we continue to pick up that excess. When contractually, it's always been that employer picks up a portion and employees pick up their portion. That's not uncommon in the working world. And I'm not against our employees, but I'm trying to be factual about the benefits of an employer and the job. We're lucky to have good benefits. We're lucky to have, life insurance, but there's a cost for that. There's a cost for everybody, employees and employers. And we have to be careful about being the only municipality or business that doesn't hold true to the market and what the market is. The market is employees pay their portion, employees pay their portion. This is always a difficult thing. And I cringe every time when I look at my benefits package at my own job and I thought, there we go again. I got to pay a little more. But this is not going to go away. And if we think as a council that we're going to continue to absorb this year after year after year after year, I really feel like we're going to get in a position where it may be too expensive to hire employees. We all have different jobs. We have high stress jobs. We have people sitting at a desk job. We have people running a weed eater job. And it's not apples for apples. It never will be apples for apples. Because some people choose to take a higher level or a more stressful position or whatever it might be. But, with those levels, you obviously get the pay. But with that pay, you get that responsibility of having to manage or operate a department or not be just your own personal employee, but you have to manage other things within the city. And so, it's never going to be apples for apples. And it's never a good time to raise insurance benefits. But one thing is for certain, we're going to deal with this every single year. And the costs will always go up. So let's look at the big picture. My fear is we show a pattern here, and I'm not against employees, okay? But we show a pattern here where we're going to continue to absorb and absorb and absorb taxpayer money to pay for we're taking taxes from 7,000 plus citizens, and we're going to deliver that and point it to less than 100. What's our staff? What's our city staff? What? 103? Okay. Well, I was a little more than 100. So again, I struggle with this every single year that we do this. I really do. Because I know what I'm saying right now doesn't sound like I'm for my employees. Because my picture right now is, what are we doing what's best for the city of Globe? Are we going to continue to take their taxpayer money and funnel it to a system and make it an abnormal system where employees don't have to pay for their insurance, or employees are somehow going to be stuck at a rate that is not like the rest of the world? I always want to say, let's look for ways. The one employee that doesn't pay anything, maybe they do pay something. And maybe I need to get a little more educated about it, but maybe every employee pays their fair share. The one that doesn't pay anything, he pays his share or her share, and that cuts the cost on everybody else. But whatever we do, I think, and we have this conversation since I've been on council every single year. This is not the time. This is not the time. This is not. We always find reasons to say this is not the time. And the easy way out is, we got the money. Well, of course we have the money. I mean, we have money to do almost anything you want. But you keep Councilman once said this in another meeting, Mr. Pastor, if we keep chipping away at our nest egg, a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there, what are we going to be left with? So, I mean, it's a much bigger picture, and I don't want to go on a run on this, but I really think we need to consider strongly about what we're doing when we keep saying we can't afford to pass on costs. When costs are being passed on around the world, in the working world. I'm not saying that I support the total amount. It's a hard pill to swallow. I would have a tough time swallowing it as an employee, but I'm doing that now. I just got my packet a couple of weeks ago. And so, I don't know if there's ways that we can figure this out, but I just think that we're going to go down a path that we're going to regret if we continue to do this year after year after year, consecutively. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Freddie. Mike, do you have any comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you well know, I come from a strong union background, being in the mines for 35 years and being in a lot of negotiation sessions, and the biggest issue that ever came up was the medical benefits. And no matter how hard you work for that company, and that company makes their profit, and I always used to think, well, profit is good. If they made a profit, then we should get everything we want. Well, in the real world, it doesn't work that way. I was kind of amazed that the city pays what they pay for the benefits. I mean, it's a great program, and if I were an employee, I'd probably be right on top of it too. But like Mr. Reel said, there has to be a solution, and the solution isn't just to say, well, let's go ahead and absorb it and wait till next year. I would suggest that we sit down as a group and negotiate. I mean, if I'm reading this chart right, it's a 19.1%
The increase from last year is 7.9. Let me look.
Right.
That's not the increase. That's the percent of the split.
Right. Okay. All right. So the employee would be responsible for 20, and the city would be responsible for 80. Maybe we need to negotiate that price amongst ourselves. See if we can come to a solution. And I'm not. I look at the. You sent us out that list of salaries and pay scales for all the employees, and I was kind of shocked that some of the salaries that are paid, whether it's the high end or the low end, it seemed pretty. What's the word I want to use? Kind of all over the place.
Well, when
from top to bottom. Let's be honest about it. And that creates a lot of animosity and negative morale with staff, whether you're at the top end or the bottom end. And 7.9% is a lot of money at one shot. Maybe we can negotiate amongst ourselves to the city cover some of it, but also with the idea that as we move along, that's going to change more. We're going to have to come to some kind of a medium, a center where we feel good about what we cover and what the employees take on. Okay, and it doesn't mean that somewhere along the line we're going to have to increase wages for employees. Probably does. Okay, but there's so much unknown right now dealing with this pandemic. It's kind of hard, and I know we talked about it yesterday, and I kept thinking about it. It's just kind of hard to say, no, we're just going to throw it all on you at one time. I don't think that's fair to the employees, but I do think, like Mr. Rios says, they have to start taking a bite on the bullet with us. Okay, so that's pretty much where I'm at. I think we could probably negotiate some kind of a deal here and not just say, no, we're going to pay it all. I think we need to be realistic. We've got taxpayers out there that they have to pay their share of their medical benefits. Everybody does pay. All of us pay, So, I would like to discuss it a lot more and come to some middle ground. That's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Fernando, you got a comment?
Yeah, I kind of look at this more from an insurance point of view. So one of the things that we were looking to do is to move people from the HMO to the PPO. So we incentivize them by doing that to basically switch plans. Or if they wanted to keep the HMO, then of course they carried some of that cost. Now, the thing that I'm wondering is, how are they performing? Because the HMO was costing us as an employer higher losses. And so the incentive was to get them to the PPO. But I don't see any numbers this time. I don't see any numbers on actuarials as far as what our healthcare costs, because the rates are basically based on, there are, inflationary things that are built into it, but at the same time, it's also based on our performance. So if you have a higher copay or higher deductible, then the cost to the carrier is less, so therefore your losses are less, so then you're more marketable and you get a better rate. Now, but when I look at this, it still doesn't seem quite fair, but it's hard to tell without looking at the actuarials. But we actually pay less towards the contribution on the HMO plan to an employee. And when you look at what we're paying to the PPO, it's higher. And then the cost went up, but we're still holding the PPO at zero. So I'm thinking, because I can't see the actuarials, I'm not sure if that actually makes sense. It seems to me like that should be spread out. If you're going to raise it, then you should raise some on the cost, pass some of that cost on to the PPO people, okay, as well, not just put it all on the backs of the HMO people. I don't always agree with Freddie, but on this one I kind of do. It's very typical that an employer would pay maybe 80% and an employee pay 20%. But we also don't pay very high. So I feel like the smarter thing to do is we still offer the package on the health insurance to the employees at a nominal cost to them. I think if they share, they're more appreciated. They guard it more because they're sharing in the cost. Got skin in the game, basically. But maybe we can then look at paying them $1 more an hour or whatever, reevaluate. I know we've kind of been reevaluating positions and looking at pay, but I still feel like the city is kind of on the low end of the pay scale, but on the higher end of the benefit scale. So I know that we got people that are working for us that could go make more money somewhere else, but then they look at their family situation saying, I have benefits. And so I think that helps us keep some employees. But tell that to an invincible that's 23 years old. You know, they don't think that way. And so, but I feel like we really need to look at that HMO. Maybe we shouldn't even be offering it, but I can't tell based on what I'm looking at because we're just only looking at dollars and the cost, not what the performance is. So I think in order for me to give a better advice, I would need to see what the performance is. And maybe, I know that there was some heartburn about getting rid of the HMO, but I did the math, and I was way money ahead, even with the higher deductibles, by going to the PPO plan. And so that's what I did. And but I think, too, we can help people understand how those coverages work. And if the smart thing is to do is get rid of the HMO, then we should think about doing that. But I still think that we can do something that kind of equal what the city would pay. The reason we were paying the whole amount on the PPO was because it was costless. But we're paying less than that for the HMO. And I just think that we could spread that out a little bit and make it a little bit more affordable for everybody. Sorry that was long-winded.
Thank you, Fernando. Yeah, this subject every year is always a tough one to try and understand it all. I don't agree with the 7.9% increase to the employee only. I think I grew up in a union family, and we negotiated many contracts, and it was all about benefits and stuff like that. I think it's something that maybe we could look at. That's a cost share. We haven't given our employees a COLA raise or even any type of raises in the last couple of years. And when you give a raise, that's a permanent increase every year, and it multiplies every year. This is just an annual cost that we talk about, that we cover some of the costs that helps them from. What I worry about is a single person that doesn't cost them much. I worry about a family employee that's making $30,000-$40,000 a year compared to a family employee that's making $80,000-$90,000 a year. You know, and they're going to pay the same difference. They're going to pay the same difference. I don't like that, because the lower guy is making less and less money every time. So I want to see costs. I want to see comparisons before I could make a decision as to which way we go with it. I am not for having the employee absorb the full cost myself. There's some negotiation where we can look at maybe a share cost and see where we end up. That's my opinion with it.
Through you, Mayor, how many employees are currently on the PPO, and how many are in the HMO?
In the HMO 41 and the PPO 52. 41, 52.
So it's almost a
the majority in the PPO.
Yep.
93 employees.
And then there's about 10 that choose not to take the insurance.
10 that don't choose.
No, they don't. They have it through their spouse.
Right.
We have 103 then.
103 insured employees.
What's that?
We have 103 insured employees.
93.
93.
10 that don't take it. That's true.
That's my question. Thank you.
So I just would like to clarify one point. We have given some raises because but they've been select and chosen. When you look at the salaries from a year or two ago, and then you look what was in the packet a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, and you go line by line and look, you see that people have been given some raises. Not everybody, but some people have been. So that opens another whole can of worms. I think we need to be more fair.
So, I mean, the common sense solution is 50-50. We pick up 4% of it, and the employee picks up 3.9%, and apply that to the PPO one, and then that is we split 50-50 with everybody on the increase. We take half of the hit, they take half the hit, and we add the hit, that half hit to the first person, to the PPO with one.
That would be one option. I also like to see what we would do.
What's that?
I would also like to see what we do to increase for the single person. I mean, if they pay 0 right now.
Right. So they would pay the I think 60-31.
Well, if they're paying 20% of $850, it's about $170, and they should be paying 20% of everybody else's.
Right. So right now on this PPO single, we're picking up the $62. If we split that, it'd roughly be 31 to.
No, the whole dollar amount is what we have to base it on. If a single person with the PPO is their premium is $849.25, and the city's paying all of it, that is certainly not fair to any of the other employees. So why shouldn't that employee pay 20% like everybody else is? Not the whole dollar amount, 20% of the whole dollar amount, not of an increase, not of.
So you want everybody pays.
Well, whatever we decide on, yeah. I think we need to decide on that, and it needs to be fair across the board.
So every employee, every option, the employee picks up 20%, and we pick up 80%.
Right. Even the single. That's an option, but we just want to see different options.
Yeah. There's plenty of options.
Okay, so that's one option. The 80-20 split. Do that, and then we have I don't know what the other option.
The city picking up the tab.
The whole tab
is an option, and that should be on the table. Whether anybody else agrees or not, it is an option.
What you have to do is provide some comparison numbers. So the city picks it all up. It shows it.
So the city picks up 100% of the increase.
Okay, and then the city picks up 90. The employee picks up 10.
So the
city picks up 85
of the increase or the cost of the insurance.
The increase.
The increase.
The increase.
Yeah. Break it down into percentages for different levels. I know that's probably a little extra work for Jeannie up there. She's pretty good with numbers.
We have consultants.
Okay.
I mean, we're competing with the mines, the salaries around us, and the mines and other, the county, the ADOT. We're competing with them, and we got to be competitive in order to get these individuals here. And maybe our salaries aren't the highest, but we got better benefits, maybe.
To stay, how many have we lost in Public Works in the last 6 months? Like I know of 6, 7, 8 of them.
The other thing is it's kind of unique that we're in this COVID situation, but we're talking about some excess money, and we got to put that out of our minds and look at what the real life is going to be like. Because it's not going to be as great as it's been. It's not going to be as bad as it's been. Yeah. It's going to be in between. So we got to find some,
If yearly raises were given to employees I could be more in favor of passing this along, but because they haven't received a raise in X amount of years, I just don't think it's right to dwindle that smaller paycheck for those on the lower end of the salary range. You lose them. I mean, you say who we're competing with. You compete with the casino who charges you $20 a month for your insurance, and that's it. They pick up the rest. So, and their insurance is amazing. I mean, so that's who you compete with in this community. Is the mines, the casino. I mean, these big entities, and I get it. They have money to spend, but so do we right now. And until we can figure out some kind of pay scale to, okay, this is what we'll do moving forward. I mean, because even last year, to Councilman Rios' point, every year that we've said we'll eat it up, we've never come up with a solution that says, okay, moving forward, this is what we'll do.
Well,
we just get it. We get it on the table. We see it. We vote on it, and we move on until it comes back again. We don't ever come up with a solution. We just this is the Band-Aid fix, and we'll just keep going.
Well, until we come with some system where, you know, our city has given raises to certain individuals by trying to fix different departments and stuff, and it should have been done. But that didn't affect every employee. This affects every employee. If we cover a cost that's going to be the same for the guy that's making $30,000, the guy that's making $90,000, that's fair to everybody. You know, the other way, I mean, some of these individuals haven't got raises in this city. They have not got raises. And so until we come with a system we do a merit, but we don't believe in COLA. You know? And so I just want to see options where we can somehow share the cost, cover the cost, or whatever. We need to look at different options. I do.
So I have an 80-20 where the city picks up 80% of the cost of the insurance, and the employee picks up 20%, and then I have an option for the city picking up 100% of the increase, and then some incremental going down to probably 50.
50-50.
Yeah, 50 from 50-50. We can do some splits from 50-50 to 100 for the percentage of the 7.9. Okay. And then we can bring those back next week.
We're going to bring this back, so we need to table 3D, correct?
No, the split of how we do the insurance is a budgetary city issue. 3B, the signing of the contract would be we're buying the package, how we get reimbursed, and so they're really not connected. Yeah, I think what we need to do, I would say when we get to that item, we want to go ahead and confirm that so we can get open enrollment set and get people lined up for whatever we decide. But no, we're going to buy the insurance. It's how much we get reimbursed for it, and how much we.
It'll be us that decide how to split that. So we'll go to action items, and we'll go to item A. And so we got council will possibly approve the annual retainer agreement with Siegel Consulting for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023 at an annual rate of $32,000, which has been budgeted in account 10-55-51225 General Fund Admin Consultants.
And we had talked about, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we talked about this before. Again, I think we had high praise for Siegel. And they're on the phone and listening and available if you have any questions. But this is action item, and depends on where council.
And that cost hasn't gone up from last year.
$500.
500, was it 500?
Which is so reasonable.
Yeah.
So I move that we motion as stated.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So item B is council would consider and possibly approve the group health plan contract amendment with Blue Cross Blue Shield for fiscal year 2020-2021, which reflects a 7.9% increase for employee health care benefits.
So this would be just to finalize we have the presentation and the coverage. Not many things have changed. It's the same package that we know and love, just except for the increase, which was our decision is how we pass that along.
And they've negotiated the lowest rate that they can get at this point.
And they've fought pretty hard. They have as I think Councilmember Shipley had talked about. They have much bigger customers. They have some weight when they speak, and I think they did get it down at least a percentage point. But I don't think we're gonna see anything gonna change at this point. So that would be the contract.
So to clarify, with approval, this is just approving the contract. We will then next week talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna write a check for this.
Okay.
It's how much do we receive back from our employees.
Okay.
And so you can say we're not charging anything. We're on the hook for it. It's just a matter of how much do we get in reimbursement from the employees.
With that stated, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the group health plan contract amendment with Blue Cross Blue Shield for fiscal year 2020-2021, which reflects a 7.9 increase for employee health care benefits.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed. Item C, we have consideration of council to possibly approve applications and appoint up to 5 individual Globe residents to serve on the City of Globe Board of Adjustments as established in the City of Globe Code, City Code Section 14-2-3B. This section would supersede any prior action of council appointment to act as a Board of Adjustment. Paul.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, as we had talked, this is Board of Adjustments is the first time in recent history where we've staffed this or filled this with outside, in residents to make those calls to serve as the Board of Adjustment. We have 2 pending cases that would come up on there. It is up to the mayor to make the selection. The mayor, you've worked hard on this to seek these people out, talk to them. Council, I know, helped with a lot of recommendations, and so it would be. This would be, Mayor, this would be your slate that you're bringing forward, and as a slate, if council would have to ratify or approve your selection, and so it would be a straight up vote to approve the 5 names or the slate of people that you're nominating.
Okay, and with direction of the council, we did follow up, and I know Shelley, thank you, she did a lot of follow up with some of these individuals trying to get applications in and everything. We did call a meeting where we talked to a few of them. I have talked to every individual on the phone discussing this about the being on this board. The ones that we can move forward at this time, and we have 2 that we can use as alternates because we're waiting also on their applications. But I I can say them all at one time.
I would do the motion and I would read them off and then ask for a motion to nominate the slate that you're about to read.
Okay, the motion I'm asking for is to nominate Mr. Brian Gunno, Mr. John Luce, Ms. Diane Montgomery, Mr. John Wong, Ms. Lisa Brazil. Those are the 5 that have responded and completed all the paperwork. We have talked to them, and they're excited to come on board with the Board of Adjustments.
Motion to approve those as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 5 individuals stated. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Mayor? Ready.
So early in this selection process, I thought there were some other individuals that had been nominated or at least been offered. Are those the individuals that you're talking about that haven't provided the applications?
Yeah, and some of the ones that were actually nominated, I have the whole list here, said no. They said that they thought about it and they said they would not. Okay. But we still have a couple of them that are potentials too. I talked to them, but they never completed the paperwork to get to this point.
And there's still an opportunity if others want to join the committee. We have the flexibility, right? I think we decided 7 total.
Yeah, up to 7. So I would say, I mean, you never know that who can appear on any one night. Everybody's got a busy schedule, if you can get seven willing participants and we can train them up and have them participate, and then we'll see if we call a meeting. If we have 7, 6 down to 5, we can still hold that meeting, and it gives flexibility and a chance for as many people who want to participate to participate. So we would nominate these 5 and then see if we can bring them back later. But I will tell you that we will probably initiate, start scheduling the training, and then we need to have a meeting where we adopt bylaws. So hopefully we could get them onto the meeting on the 9th, and maybe we can get that wrapped up.
Yeah.
That's only 6 days away.
And then I have 3 on the list that are still possible, so I'm going to contact all 3 of them again and follow up and see if they're still interested. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you. Next, we have executive session, but we have no e-session scheduled.
No executive session.
So I call for the motion for adjournment.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, before we adjourn, just a reminder to those in the chamber that once we close the meeting, before they get up, they need to mask up.
Yes, yes. As we move around, please put your mask on. So we have motion a second for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passed. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.